What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new live episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC, television, and movie news. Streaming live for you guys today over on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. It is I, your host. We are back once again as we got 6 incredible topics for you guys today. We're going to be diving into some DCU news as Sergeant Rock has certainly hit a bump in the road. We'll be diving into that a little bit. Could we possibly be getting ourselves a brand new Deadpool movie? Ryan Reynolds clearly seems to be working on something. We also got Jeremy Renner talking about his time on Hawkeye and the idea of him coming back for season 2. All that plus much more, guys. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your host, Adam Perez. We're back with a brand new live episode of A-Plus Hero Report on a lovely Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning so far here in Fort Worth, Texas. It's beautiful, man. We had some really terrible thunderstorms the past couple days, but it's looking great out here. I am joined none other than by my guest, Stuart Branscombe, in the house. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you, man.
Hey, not much. Good to see you too.
Give me a second. I got my headphones all wrapped up in my chair. So I'm I feel like I'm all tangled right now.
You move your seat back just a tiny bit, and then suddenly the whole thing gets unplugged.
The whole thing gets unplugged, gets tight around me. I'm like, what is happening right now? I don't know how that happened. But thank you guys so much for certainly joining us. We got some incredible topics here today. Certainly worth talking about. Some honorable mentions. And Stuart, today is a day worth celebrating. As it is, in fact, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
I, too, am wearing my Star Wars shirt, my Rogue One shirt.
Welcome to the dork side. We have cookies.
Yes.
Hang out with us today, y'all. But yeah, it is, in fact, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with everybody always. Look, we're big Star Wars fans around here. We're currently reviewing the Andor series as of right now with our own little Jedi Council here at A-Plus Hero Report. But it's always worth a day celebrating this year. I don't think this is the official Star Wars anniversary day, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is more like merchandising celebration day for Star Wars, but nonetheless, always a good reason to certainly celebrate one of my favorite franchises certainly out there. And look, as we go through today's show, we always would love to know about you guys. How were you introduced to Star Wars? Do you have any fond memories of the franchise? What did you love about it? What are some of your favorite movies? Certainly feel free to share all of that with us here today. I do have a couple other honorable mention things in for Star Wars to certainly talk about for today, but we'll definitely get to that in a little bit here. But do you have any plans on celebrating Star Wars Day today? I don't think I had anything lined up, but now that I'm talking about it, Stuart, I kind of want to maybe do a mini marathon. I don't have any plans today, so I'm just thinking maybe I should fill it with Star Wars, even though something new for Star Wars just dropped today, didn't it?
Oh, wait, did we get Star Wars Visions? Or did we get... No, we got the other show, Tales of the Underworld. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that
okay,
dropped
I know
today.
what I'm doing then.
Yeah, man, it definitely dropped today. I haven't had the opportunity to watch them yet, but I think we got ourselves how many episodes do we usually have? 8?
Usually six.
Six, right?
Usually 3 episodes following one character, and then 3 episodes following another.
So that dropped today. So that should be interesting to certainly watch. But yeah, guys, look, I definitely want to know your thoughts in regards to Star Wars in general. How did you get into the franchise? What do you love about it? What was the first movie you remember watching today or watching for the franchise? I definitely want to know about your love for Star Wars. How you been, Stuart? What you been up to, man?
Not much the last couple days. But yeah, been good for the most part. Just average days at work,
I feel you. How's the box office looking? We had Thunderbolts this week. Have you checked out Thunderbolts yet?
Yeah, Thunderbolts, watched it. Box office wise, it's doing decent. I think it would have done a lot better if we didn't have like an internet like server issue at our theater.
Oh,
Our servers went down for a while, so there was like a long period of time where people weren't able to purchase tickets.
oh no.
So when they went back up, we did still have plenty of pre-sold tickets. So I think like yeah, we sold a decent amount, not as much as like Sinners or what else do we have? Like, yeah, like other big hits, like I did a little bit better than it, but I think that other theaters it's been doing pretty well though.
But you've watched Thunderbolts?
I
You've
have,
seen it?
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I just me and the girlfriend just watched Thunderbolts yesterday. I thought it was a great movie, man. I had such a really fun time with it. I thought great humor, great story, great characters in it. Um I, one of the questions that I had going into this movie was like, how do these characters defeat somebody like the Sentry or the Void or something like that? So I thought it was really well handled in regards to the culmination of the movie itself. So I was really proud of Thunderbolts. I had a really good time with this movie though. But yeah, guys, if you get the opportunity to check it out for yourselves, please go ahead and do so. How did you feel about Thunderbolts? Did you feel it's peak MCU, like top 10, or do you feel like it's kind of business as usual?
I would definitely say it's on the better half of the MCU. I don't know if I would go top 10. I'd have to like make a top 10 list for that. But it was really good. I definitely love a lot of the character interactions with it. I think that it definitely handled mental health pretty well, you know, as far as like as far as superhero movies usually go when touching upon the subject. I think this movie handled it in a pretty mature way. And then I liked how, you know, it gave us what we want in an MCU movie. It gave us all the fun action, the fun character interactions, and yet it still told a very grounded and very human story. And then on top of that, like the funniest thing is that this is something I normally, like any other movie studio, I wouldn't even comment on, but because it's Marvel and because I'm so used to them not doing this, it is so cool to see a Marvel movie where they're not over reliant on green screens and all the actors are like actually in the same room together most of the time.
Yeah, they had some pretty interesting set pieces there. I'm glad you brought up the not too reliant on a green screen sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely echo a lot of your sentiments. I think the mental illness. Sorry if I'm out of breath, y'all. I was trying to under my chair trying to get these wires untangled and stuff while Stuart was doing this thing. Um, yeah, I think the idea of mental illness um like really hit home. I think, I think the fact that they were kind of able to embody all of that into one character like the Void and make it sort of resonate for people that I think struggle with that stuff. um I thought it was a perfect representation, and I was a really big fan of how all the characters dealt with it, along with just seeing like some of their backstory filled a little bit and allowing us to learn a little bit more about like what these characters went through, what their current situation was. Like the John Walker stuff kind of surprised me, like, damn, I didn't know a lot of these characters are in a kind of really dark place. So I thought it was a really fitting story for all these characters, and to kind of see them all come out the other side completely different. I was a really big fan of it. If you guys haven't checked out Thunderbolts, please do. It does have two end credit scenes. There's a mid credit scene, and then there's a very long post credit scene that I heard Jack Schreier said, one, he didn't direct that. That feels very much like, he said it was very much a last minute thing,
Mm.
kind of suggesting that they probably recently just filmed this, as Avengers Doomsday has now begun filming within like the last 2 weeks or something, or like this past week or two. So it looks like it might have been a last minute addition, but it is one of those things, Stuart, where it feels like Marvel is back to like using the post-credit scenes the way I always loved it, in a sense of teeing up what kind of teases and comes next, whereas they've been really utilizing the post-credits as like jokes or like something humorous. And I feel like there has been a disconnect between a lot of these Marvel movies, but it seems like they're like, you know what, with Thunderbolts, we're gonna change that, and we're gonna make it feel like a big event is kind of coming. And I kind of really appreciated the last post-credit scene we got.
Yeah, I think that post-credit scenes for Marvel movies are at their best when you have one that teases something, one that like kind of foreshadows something that we're going to be seeing down the line, and then the other is just kind of a punchline to a joke in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's what the Thunderbolts did really good. The mid-credit scene was hilarious. The post-credit scene was also hilarious, but also did a good job of hyping me up for what we're going to be seeing later on in Avengers Doomsday. I hope we get that off-screen argument that was mentioned between Bucky and Sam. I'm like, I want to know how that conversation
Yeah,
went.
I kind of want to know how that conversation went. But yeah, I feel like it's been one of the missing elements to MCU movies lately, and I'm kind of glad that they kind of brought that back because they do need these next couple of movies to really hit before Avengers Doomsday winds up dropping. Before we get into our honorable mention segment of the show, I do want to show some shout outs to people. Look, as we are going through these topics, as we're discussing them, we definitely want to know your guys' thoughts. These are always our A plus opinions, but we always want to know yours. So as we go through topics, our live chat is certainly open for you guys. If you want to go ahead and give your thoughts, we'll certainly bring up some of your stuff to certainly talk about and always have something to converse with you guys. So yeah, definitely let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below. And we love shouting out people that share their opinions. Enrique, what's going on, man? He says, hey, just saw Thunderbolts. It was amazing. The post-credit scene was great. Can't wait for Fantastic Four First Steps movie in July. Me either, man. It's looking better and better by the day. Also, Star Wars Day, and tonight Disney Channel is going to air the first 4 episodes of Skeleton Crew, and Star Wars Tales of the Underworld is now on Disney Plus. That's cool. I'm glad that Disney Channel is exploiting that a little bit and showcasing Skeleton Crew. Hopefully, it helps in regards to more viewership for that show. It was a great show. Enrique, behind the scenes first look of How to Train Your Dragon, how Bert came to life, and the film will be arriving theaters soon. Yeah, we just posted the there was a brand new live behind the scenes featurette for How to Train Your Dragon that really showed like the studio production and the set production, like set designs and things like that, of really bringing the island of Berk together. It's you know, I'm always amazed as to like how big and epic and detailed a lot of these set pieces certainly are. I mean, when you bring in like like craftsmen and woodsmen and stuff that like literally like build these sets and cut down, shape the wood into different designs and stuff, like I don't even know how long the set building takes for some of these people, like in pre-production before they even begin filming. But sometimes I think I think it's definitely an underappreciated sort of part of filmmaking that I think we like seeing, like, wow, that's a really cool set. But I think we don't fully understand like what really goes into putting this stuff together, dude. You know what I mean? Like the attention to detail, the intricacy of it all just really blows me away. And I think it's going to pay off for something like How to Train Your Dragon.
I always find it funny because until like kind of recently, you get some movies like I need to watch this series, but the Seth Rogen show that I've been told about, which
Oh,
is
the
amazing.
studio.
The studio, yeah. You get so many movies where like when there's a scene where someone's making a movie, the sets always look extremely cheap, like they're trying to make fun of like the filmmaking process is kind of like more of a parody than like an actual educational segment of the movie or anything like that, or they look so labyrinth where it's like I've never heard of any movie having this kind of a budget ever. So it is one of those things where it's like one of the reasons I want to watch that show is to be like, okay, what is realistically the idea of like what actually does go into building a set like this? Because yeah, I am curious how long it takes, because they make it seem like they can build it in like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But it's like, if that's the case, like how is it? Because like you have like 100 people working on this all together. Do you pre-plan like really well, or are you just like winging it, hoping it gets done on time? It would be something very cool to learn about, definitely.
I wonder if do you know if when I think of like the Oscars, does set production or like set design, do they have like an award or anything like that that you can think of? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I'm just like, man, we should add that to the list of things. Not just stuntmen now, but now I need a set production to be added to the to the Oscars. Finally, just saw the first 2 episodes of Percy Jackson and the Olympian season 1 on Disney. The next 2 episodes will air Friday. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I got to get back to finishing off that show, man. Ram Jam's in the house. What's up, Ram Jam? Hey, guys, how's it going? It's going great, man. Darth Gutierrez in the house. Good morning, gentlemen. He said, Stuart, it's the first time I see you without your beard. Did you shave today?
No, I shaved last a few
week?
days ago. Yeah, I was
Okay.
shaved when we did our review for Andor.
Okay. And then Ram Jam says, I have the day off today. Well, celebrate wisely, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, celebrate wisely. Get your Star Wars fix in there. Yeah, have a good time today, Ram Jam. Appreciate you certainly joining us here. What you gonna say, Stuart?
I don't see anything for set design specifically. They have like art direction, interior direction. So maybe that's what they're referring to is set design when it comes to interior direction. But yeah, like
Okay.
I don't see anything for something specifically called or anything like set design.
Set designs. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to continue to petition for that one to be part of the Oscars now going forward.
Indeed. You know what I love though that they did recently change with the Oscars?
What?
After so many years, it is just now finally required for you to actually watch the movies in a category before you vote.
Haven't they always been
Nope.
So isn't that like a requirement, bro?
It should be. It seems like something that's so obvious it should have been a requirement, but no, for so long it was not required for people to actually watch these movies before voting for them.
Well, I saw I thought I saw something that one of the Oscar voters were saying that like there's some movies that they didn't even watch, but they press play and just let the movie go or something like that if they don't have time, just so that the Academy thinks that they've kind of watched it. I've heard some really crazy horror stories recently since the past Oscars of people like not having watched a movie because they felt like somebody already got enough awards. So like, let's try and give it to somebody else. So I'm going to watch these other movies, or saying Dune was a little bit too slow for them. So they didn't bother to finish the film and stuff. And I'm just like, really? Like, that's it. Like, you guys got some pitiful, like, your one job is to watch movies, man. And you can't do that for the Oscars? Like, that's crazy. Like, look, Oscars, if you're watching the Academy, if you're ever watching the show, if you need 2 reliable, like, sources to, like, watch your Oscar movies for nominations and vote on them, Stuart and I will be more than happy to sit back and watch all the nominated films in the year. Okay, just let us know.
Just like out of nowhere, the next people hosting the Oscars, Adam and Stuart from A+ Hero Report.
Yeah, no, I don't know about hosting. I don't know about hosting the Oscars, but I'll definitely become an Oscar voter, man. I'll definitely watch the films they give me for sure. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. But yeah, feel free to share some of your thoughts in the live comments with us today. But Stuart, let's go ahead and kick off this show, man, with our first segment of the day. And this is our honorable mentions portion of the show. Topics that we felt you certainly still deserve to know about, but didn't necessarily quite make our top 6 today. I don't know if you have any, Stuart.
Not really an honorable mention or traditional way, but I do have like kind of a recommendation for our viewers.
Okay.
So there's this show on HBO Max. It's on its 2nd season now, and it's called The Rehearsal. Now, for context, my favorite show of all time, it's either South Park or Nathan For You. Like those 2 shows I will watch like over and over. They are just incredible. So Nathan For You has kind of a low-key sequel on HBO Max called The Rehearsal. And the whole point of The Rehearsal, the premise in season 1, which completely goes into a bizarre direction by the end of it, is that he helps people rehearse what they want to say to someone else. So he will hire actors to play the person that they want to rehearse what they're going to say to. He will go out of his way to build the most expensive looking sets ever. And I mean, like, he literally recreates a bar in the studio just so a guy can recreate what it would be like to tell his friend something over trivia. It is one of the funniest things. The big joke is how far he goes with such a simple premise. Season 2, though, has a very different premise from the beginning. Like the rehearsal aspect is still there, but now he's focused solely on like aviation safety and air traffic control, trying to improve that. And what's so weird about this is that it's technically a reality show, but it's also a comedy. So it's so hard for me to tell when Nathan Fielder is being genuine or when he's just like, because he's so monotone, so you can never tell like what his emotions actually are. So he has this whole introduction where he's talking about how he really wants to improve air traffic safety and all that, but he also acknowledges that this is a comedy show, so I still have to make people laugh while I do so. But it is just such a fascinating series. Nathan Fielder is just a guy that I want to interview one of these days, because I have no idea if like the way he presents himself in front of the camera is actually like what he's like in real life, or if he's just like if that's what he's actually like, or if he's just like an incredible character performer. Either way, I want to interview Nathan Fielder one of these days. But yeah, check out the rehearsal, guys, if you haven't. And if you're not, even if you're not like super into season 1, please check out season 2. The first 2 episodes are up and it is incredible.
Nice. Love to hear it, man. Love to hear it. We also got some brand new Fantastic Four character posters here. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out Thunderbolts, again, they actually do tease up some what we're leading into in regards to the Fantastic Four. Yeah, we got some brand new character posters here. I kind of like this retro design. You know, growing up in the 80s, my uncle, and while I collected comic books, my uncle collected baseball cards. And that's kind of what these kind of remind me of like the retro trading card pack. You would open it up and you'd get like your stick of bubble gum inside of it too. I know like the 80s were weird, bro. I mean, they literally sold you just random sticks of gum with your trading cards at times. But this is so, I just think this marketing is pretty damn genius in regards to really diving into that 60s era in here. But I do like this. I'm sure we're gonna get better character posters, but I just thought this was pretty creative, Stuart.
That is really cool. My dad told me something that kind of crushed me inside a little bit as someone who collects trading cards. When he was a kid, he used to collect baseball cards, but then he would throw them away and only like just keep the gum. And as someone who collects as someone who collects Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I'm like, oh, that kind of crushes me to hear.
That's brutal. That's brutal, man. We also we'll stick with our Marvel theme here. Avengers Doomsday, it's official, has in fact begun. They are in fact filming as of right now. They teased this. I think maybe the Russo brothers might have dropped this photo for Victor Von Doom, as they have in fact begun filming for Avengers Doomsday. So look forward to that, guys. Next up, we also got Sinners is back in the news here, Stuart. Because Thunderbolts is in IMAX right now, it's kind of removed the Sinners being in IMAX also after it's huge. I gotta actually see how much money Sinners has made so far worldwide, but Sinners is no longer in IMAX, but they are planning on re-releasing it in 70 millimeters due to the fan demand. This is Sinners is returning to select theaters for a limited engagement run in IMAX 70 millimeters, an exclusive format only in 30 screens worldwide. It is bringing back Sinners for just 1 week. The re-release will run on from Thursday, May 15th to Wednesday, May 21st. So if you have seen Sinners already, or if you haven't seen Sinners already, but you've been wanting to see it in its true format of IMAX 70 millimeters, the re-release again will run for 1 week from Thursday, May 15th to Wednesday, May 21st. And I think what's important about this, Stuart, is I did get the opportunity to watch Sinners in 70 millimeters, which was gorgeous, to be honest with you. But it was so hard to get tickets, dude. It was so hard to get tickets. I'm so glad I was able to, me and my buddy Jonathan were able to score decent seats. But it was like a Monday night at like 11 p.m. Like all the other showings were sold out or had like just front row seats to a big ass IMAX screen. I'm not about to look up at the screen like that. Not on those screens. But yeah, I can see when they say fan demand because I mean, all the way up to the last day of IMAX, Sinners was in. Everything was sold out, and I even had a friend, Maurice. He said he's already seen Sinners for like a three times. He said I wanted to go ahead and see if I can get tickets, and he says, man, he says they're going quick already. So people definitely want to see Sinners for the first time or the second or third time on 70 millimeters. So if you have a theater near you that plays IMAX, plays Sinners in 70 millimeters, go try and see if you can find yourself some tickets, man. Because this is definitely a film that's not only great, but I think word of mouth is spreading. And a lot of people want to see it in various formats, especially 70 millimeters for sure. I've been really impressed with just the marketing for this movie and people wanting to really see it and as often as they can.
Yeah, it's like absolutely incredible because a lot of times, you expect that deep drop off after the first weekend, but I feel like for Sinners, like it's just constantly like getting like if not steady, it's probably going up honestly at this point because of like you said, word of mouth, which is it's good to know that that still works sometimes with movies because I know that a lot of times it seems to be like the first weekend is the only one that matters. So it's really
Right.
cool for movies like this to kind of break that mold.
Yeah, I mean, they usually say like your first drop off, the first weekend drop off is like 50%, or at least it should be around 50%. If it's like 60 or 70%, then that's a really terrible drop off. But I think Sinners had like a 6% drop off the second weekend. It literally made almost as much money as it did its opening weekend, which was it's bananas. Like I think that's got to be like a historical drop off, honestly. In regards to how small it was. So yeah, word of mouth is still a thing, and it shows that if you can make a great movie, people will come out to see it for sure, and the people will certainly talk about it. So check out Sinners if you have it. Sometimes it works for people. Some people it certainly doesn't work for. I've seen some people that are like, it's a little bit too slow, a little bit too boring for me. I'm like, I don't know what you watch, but I can. It's fair. That's fair. Okay. The truth says, what do you think Sinners? Why do you think Sinners has become this phenomenon? Because one of the things that I will say, Stuart, like for me, one, I think people are always asking for more original movies. And I know people say all the time, like, we want more original movies, and a lot of people just don't go out to see them. But I think it's a culmination of a few things. I don't think it's just one thing. One, people want original movies. Two, I think Ryan Coogler in people's minds has become a very trustworthy sort of director in Hollywood. I mean, from Fruitvale Station to Creed to both his Black Panther 2 films. He's made great films, regardless of how some people might feel about Black Panther 2. It's still a solid, enjoyable movie. And so Ryan Coogler, to me, has become a very trusted person in Hollywood. It's not, I mean, you also have a great cast in there: Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, uh Delroy. Damn, I can never pronounce his name or remember his name off the top of my head. Really great cast. People love horror and vampires, but I think this movie also is just it has a message. It has something that it has to say, and it's just very sort of like I, I don't want to say, I don't want to use the word masterpiece, but it's also very artsy. I think I think people recognize the idea that it's more than just a horror film, that there are things being said in here that I think speaks to certain people, that elevates the movie outside of its own genre, that's horror. Like when somebody asks me like, well, how scary is it, I'm like, oh, it's got its jump scares, it's got its blood, it's got its gore, but it's so much more than that, and it's really hard to explain to people unless they actually watch it for themselves. You know what I mean? And so I think it is a movie that elevates it above its genre.
Yeah, I think that's actually the best way to put it, is that it elevates it above its genre because yes, it's horror, but you also go into it, you get really good messages, you get a really badass action scene, you also get just some incredible performances throughout the whole
And the
thing.
soundtrack is
Yes.
fire.
Soundtrack is great. And then yeah, I am a sucker for like when the lighting is just like kind of like dark enough for you to have that creepy atmosphere, but just enough light for you to see what's going on. And I especially think they do it well when it comes to like some of the shots you get with the vampires, like, and you get like kind of that little light coming from their eyes, like they almost look
Oh
like the
yeah,
replicants
yeah.
from
That's a cool
Blade
effect.
Runner. Like it looks
Such a
so
cool
good
effect.
in this. Yeah.
Yeah. It is one of those things where it's like every department did their job.
Yes.
You know, like everybody put in like an A+ effort, and it just kind of all comes together in just a beautiful way, from editing, the cinematography, to the soundtrack, to the acting, the directing. I mean, it literally is as complete a film as you can ask for in regards to high quality stuff. And yeah, man, I don't yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it's worth seeing. And again, every movie doesn't work for everybody, but you know, hopefully you take something away from it and enjoy it for what it is.
The
Um,
you know, a shot was apparently the hardest to film in the whole movie.
which one?
The one where it's just them standing there and they hand the cigarette back and forth to each other.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. I gotta assume there's any shots like that when you're dealing with twins or like doubles. How you make something like that work? Yeah, it was pretty clean. It was pretty smooth, and then like just all the other interactions throughout. Like outside of the cigarette one, I think they do such a good job that you don't even necessarily notice it or realize it as the movie progresses. But yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Other honorable mention today, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is back in the news. Stuart, I don't know if you remember, we had talked about a character list that had emerged possibly from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot. There was some brand new character details about some of the characters that were going to be in the series itself. We might have done that a few weeks back, maybe a couple months ago. But Sarah Michelle Gellar is now coming out and debunking that, saying, guys, those are all fake characters. That thing got released is all fake. So yeah, just to give you guys a heads up.
She
Sarah
learned
Michelle
from James Gunn.
yeah, right. Coming out and just clearing the air real quick. But yeah, I just want to look, you guys know we always try and give you the correct information as much as we possibly can. If some things are rumors, if some things are just speculation, we like to go ahead and give you sort of that asterisk in the sense of take this with a grain of salt. These are in fact rumors, or sometimes, you know, if they seem to be confirmed, we'll definitely talk to you about it in that sense. But if people come out and debunk things, we definitely want to debunk them for you as well, just to make sure that we're giving you the correct information. So yeah, just a heads up for you guys. And then we also got ourselves a Fear Street Prom Queen trailer that dropped this week. Netflix is set to go ahead and drop this new entry into the Fear Street films May 23rd. This will be the fourth film coming out of Netflix's Fear Street. They did have themselves a trilogy a couple of years back, which I was a really big fan of. It's one of those things where, while yes, R.L. Stein's Fear Street books were certainly made for like young adults, I think when it really seems to embrace the slasher aspect of things and felt really unapologetically violent. The first trilogy, I was kind of surprised with some of the deaths. Like, oh my god, like I can't believe that they're really going there. I thought that they would kind of, pull back a little bit. But the Fear Street films, I was a really big fan of for the trilogy. And they're coming back with the fourth one here, May 23rd. They just dropped a brand new trailer if you guys haven't had the opportunity to see it. But check it out. It is currently up on our Facebook page. We definitely want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, it is kind of like I haven't seen any of the Fear Street movies on Netflix, but it is kind of funny the idea of adapting R.L. Stein's movies into like an adult horror movie, because they've always been like kind of twisted in their own ways, but they've always kept a young audience in mind. So I'm curious how they work now.
To be fair, I haven't fully watched all the Goosebumps stuff on Disney, but I got to tell you right now, from R.L. Stein's work being adapted, Fear Street is my ish right now. Like I'm really big fan of the Fear Street stuff that we've gotten so far. Blossom says, I bet you it would scare a ton of teenagers. I mean, Jizo, Roxy. Yeah, it's you check out the trailer if you haven't checked out the trailer. Again, it is up on our Facebook page, but the new film dropping May 23rd. 3rd. And then last but not least, Stuart, I just wanted to highlight some Star Wars stuff real quick before we dive in. We do have our Andor episodes 4 through 6 review available for you guys. We do live reviews on air every Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time. But if you want to check out our latest review, it's myself, Stuart, and Will as we dive into episodes 4 through 6. That's currently up right now. Some great poster work as a lot of people worldwide are celebrating Star Wars May the 4th be with you. Shout out to whoever the FX artist's name is at the bottom of this for coming up with this really badass poster. Anytime I find a cool Star Wars poster, I'm thinking to myself, I got to utilize this stuff at some point in time. But really big fan of what we're getting. Also, Tales of the Underworld, again, the brand new Tales of series has dropped today. Go ahead and check out all 6 episodes. And Stuart, I wanted to go ahead and drop this nugget because we haven't we did this, I think, last year for May the 4th. Here at A Plus Hero Report, all of our team members, for the most part, I think we had like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 people. We did a live action movie ranking for Star Wars. It was all of our high council that participated. We had a couple other A Plus Hero Report members. Had everybody rank their live action Star Wars movies, and then we averaged them all out, and this is our official rankings here at A Plus Hero Report. You know, I had my issues with some of the results here, Stuart. And only in the sense of I felt like The Last Jedi should have been up a little bit more, but I understand people's disappointment with that film. But I do think as the years progress, I can see The Last Jedi maybe bumping up this ranking for some people. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a pretty fair assessment for the movie rankings. Again, this is just out of 8 to 9 people that ranked this, but I feel pretty good still about these rankings.
I'll say this though, with The Last Jedi, I get it. When people don't like what they did with Luke Skywalker's character, I totally get where they're coming from. But dear God, if I have to listen to another person say Luke Skywalker went in there ready to kill Ben, it's like, no, that is not at all what happened in the scene. That's what happened in Ben's perspective, yes, but no, that is not what happened.
I'm glad the fact that you brought that up is interesting to me because I feel like all this week on my TikTok, that's all I've been seeing is like that argument resurfacing for some reason. I don't know what started that argument. I don't know if maybe because the Revenge of the Sith was re-released in theaters, and so people were talking about Anakin's fall to the dark side, and Luke being out there saving him, and then just the idea of like, Luke's brief moment in The Last Jedi, and talking about he went out there with the mindset of massacring his nephew, and we're like, what are you talking about? It's just really interesting to me that argument has been brought back up again, because you mentioned it, and I'm like, I have actually been seeing that a lot on my TikTok lately. But if there's anything I would change on this, if I could, I think for mine, there's a part of me that has Attack of the Clones above the Phantom Menace, and I probably would also put The Last Jedi above the Phantom Menace for me also. Outside of that, I really love how this list has kind of come together. I can't remember what my own personal rankings was, but I'm pretty sure I had The Last Jedi and Attack of the Clones above the Phantom Menace. What about you?
I think for me, I had I definitely had New Hope above Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
and
wow. Then, you did have it pretty high.
Yeah, and then I also think like Solo was higher than most. I think I had it higher than both prequels, or sorry, Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, but not Episode 3. But I think Rise of Skywalker being at the bottom, that's one that I have in common with this list.
Yeah, I think everybody had that one in common, which is pretty funny. But yeah, so look, guys, I may watch some Star Wars movies today. I may get back in my bag, but I am kind of curious if you guys have a live action Star Wars ranking. I would love to hear your top 3, your top 5. Hell, you're all 11. If you've got some time, definitely go ahead and let us know some of your thoughts. But yeah, maybe next Star Wars Day, we'll do something along those lines again for next year. This year's been a blur for me so far, and I was just like, oh crap, it's May the 4th today. So, but yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts.
Well, we should wait until Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, and then we should
Ooh.
do our next list.
Yeah, totally. I would be completely down for that. Just a nice little update. Yeah, I would be down for that. All right, Stuart, with that out of the way, let's get into our main topics today, man. You ready?
Hell yes.
Shout out to Blossom again, though. Before I forget, May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you too, Blossom, always. All right, let's do this, Stuart. We got some incredible topics we're going to be diving into today. As DC Studios, you are up to bat. We got a couple of updates for you guys. One specifically in regards to the Sergeant Rock movie. Stuart, I got to tell you, man, I'm still like in my head, I'm debating myself, like, did James Gunn ever confirm this movie? Like, did he ever green light this film from ever happening? I'm trying to go into like my Rolodex of James Gunn interviews in the sense of he's like, yeah, we're doing this film, the script is ready, we're casting now. Like, I'm trying to remember if he's ever talked about the idea of like Sergeant Rock is actually in the process of moving forward or not, or if this has really just been entertainment media with their insider sources kind of revealing all this information before James Gunn and them have actually even come out and greenlit this. If somebody can find me those James Gunn interviews, I definitely would love to know. Because Sergeant Rock, while it's been in the news for several months now in regards to who the director is, who the writer is, we even had a false Daniel Craig casting sighting, to the idea of maybe Jeremy Allen White might be up for this role, only for us to co-officially land Colin Farrell as Sergeant Rock casting a couple of months ago, or a couple of weeks ago, to the point to where I thought at CinemaCon they might reveal Colin Farrell as Sergeant Rock. That unfortunately just never happened. But apparently, according to a couple of sources, the Sergeant Rock movie has in fact hit a speed bump. It looks as though, hold on one second. It looks as though this movie has officially either been canceled, Stuart, or postponed for future. I do want to go ahead and reveal the first article and how it was kind of presented to us. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here. So I'll keep you guys up to date in regards to like the order in which this all happened. So first off, we had the first news drop of the Hollywood Reporter saying DC Studios, Luca, I'm not even going to pronounce his last name, movie Sergeant Rock not moving forward, according to the Hollywood Reporter. It says Sergeant Rock Studios, DC Studios action war movie based that was to shoot this summer will no longer move forward, is what sources told Hollywood Reporter. The feature project had Colin Farrell as the title character and was in production. It was in pre-production as it planned a shoot in England. It is also in the throes of casting, trying to line up actors who would play the men of Easy Company, the combat unit fighting Nazi forces in Europe. Sources say Mike Feist, who starred in Challengers, was lined up for a role. And then the role of a female French resistance fighter had also been set, per sources. So according to the Hollywood sources, they were deep into casting for this movie. They were in pre-production. They had plans on eventually shooting sometime in England. It says it is unclear why the production has been shut down, although an insider said it came down to the project scheduling needs of shooting outdoors. The insider said that the project was not going away and would be reassessed at the end of the year for a possible summer shoot in 2026. Another source raised the possibility that the director remained untested in the realm of action movies. And even though the budget was in the $70 million range, a paltry sum for comic book movies, higher ups may have wavered in their confidence. DC toppers James Gunn have been high on Rock, which was not initially on the list of projects for the first chapter of their slate, but the duo said that they made room for it due to the strength of the script, who penned by the writer who penned Challengers and the movie Queer. It says, although it has World War II settings, the story is said to involve Rock teaming up with the female French resistance fighter to find the mystical spear of destiny, the spear used to stab Jesus Christ during his crucifixion, which in lore is said to have supernatural powers. They race to obtain it before the Nazis get their hands on it. So, again, it says it's unclear why it shut down, although some are saying it came down to the project's scheduling, needing to shoot outdoors. The insider said that the project was not going away and would be assessed at the end of the year for a possible summer shoot in 2026. And then also some questioning about maybe the director. So, it is interesting that Hollywood Reporter goes with this title of not moving forward, despite their own sources saying, no, it might just be postponed to next year. But it definitely seems to be some level of uncertainty surrounding the movement of this film. So we wind up getting that. That article dropped May 30th. And then later on that day, Deadline came out with another article that sort of presented this in a little bit of a different light, if you will. So let's dial into this. While Hollywood Reporter says it's not moving forward, Deadline says it halts pre-production, now eyeing a summer 2026 production start. It says sources have confirmed to Deadline that it's halted production plans. While the film was supposed to enter production in the coming months, we're now told they'll hold off to shoot next summer. They said ultimately shooting this summer was unattainable, as the team would have to rush through prep to hit the right weather conditions at the right time. The film is being shot primarily on location in the UK, and shooting exteriors in the dead of winter would not have been optimal conditions for cast, crew, and equipment. It says news comes as a shock as the film was greenlit months ago with the $65 million budget and plans to shoot this August. Sources close to the project say they were scouting locations last week, and the studio was far down the line with David Johnson from Alien Romulus to join Farrell, as well as Challenger star Mike Feist, who had also been given an offer. So within these two articles, Stuart, we've got two like new casting announcements also, in the sense that Mike Feist from Challengers has been offered a role, along with the guy, I believe it's the guy that played the android in Alien Romulus, breakout star David Johnson, had been offered a role as well. So it looks as though, look, Stuart, I'm kind of under the impression, based off this news, that they may still go through with this movie, but a lot of this may be postponed to next year. So it sounds like they may still want to do this film, but due to the set locations, the idea of having to shoot this outdoors, they really wanted this to be a summer shoot. It sounds like they may be eyeing 2026 production start in the summer instead of actually canceling this film. But I am kind of curious. Do you think the possibility of this film being canceled is still a real thing at this point? Or do you think that, I think that this is the new plan of a summer 2026 start?
I think either is equally possible at this point. It really depends on how good this script is. Like, if they think that this is a script that could actually win them awards, I do feel like they are going to push the, they're going to push for postponing it. And especially try to get like all the actors involved, try to make sure that they have a free schedule, especially if it's like a very specific shooting schedule that they have to do in order to properly film it on location. So I think it's possible we could still get it. I also think that if the script isn't anything like that great, if it's just like, a fun script, I could see them kind of just putting it in the vault for a while and then not coming back to it for a while until there's like an easier way to shoot it. What I hope they don't do is I hope they don't just kind of like scrap like the premise of it in order to make it easier to shoot, make it something that you could easily film like indoors. I hope they don't do anything like that, because then it feels like that would go against what, the writer of the movie was intending, if that's like the main reason they had to shut it down. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's 50-50 either way. I think the easier way to do it would be to make sure that for when you do start production up again on it, for the cast and crew, hire somewhat newer guys. So people that you don't have to worry about having like a busy schedule, because that's kind of where I imagine the hardest part about scheduling being, is that if you get someone like Colin Farrell to play Sergeant Rock, he's probably got like a bunch of other projects going on. So scheduling around that, especially when you need him for, a specific amount of time. Yeah, I can imagine that being kind of difficult, but yeah, only time will tell. I'm going with the I'm currently remaining on the side of I think it will get made, just not for some time.
I get you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious as to how this is all going to turn out. I definitely want this film to be made. I think there are certain aspects in this though that is pretty smart on James Gunn's part, if this holds true, in the sense of really not rushing production just because you want to have a movie made. I do wonder if it's in pre-production, so they haven't necessarily begun filming. So the idea of like filming and then stopping production and having to film again, I think that'll probably be more costly to them than anything, instead of like postponing while you're currently in pre-production before the filming has actually begun. So I think the idea of waiting is much smarter than trying to certainly push forward. I am interested if they are moving forward. Does that mean that, like, does that really put into peril Colin Farrell's addition to this film? Are they taking into account, when they're offering these cast members these deals, the idea of like, hey, this is going to be a summer 2026 shoot? Are you still going to be available for that? I did hear some people say like, oh, I wonder if this opens up Colin Farrell for a Penguin 2 series, because he's got to wait now to start filming this. And I'm like, bro, Batman 2 is not even written yet. Okay. So like, they really have no idea what they want to do with a Penguin season 2 at this point. So unless Colin Farrell doesn't have anything else planned to shoot for next summer, I'm hoping that this certainly holds true. A couple of things that really jumped out to me though, in regards to the um the director in here, saying some things along the lines of they're not sure as to whether or not he is how he is with action movies. There is a part of me that thinks that maybe, with the production possibly being pushed back to summer 26, maybe we could get ourselves a brand new director in here. That I think that is certainly one that's open. I think the idea of bringing Luca in, I don't think he wrote Challengers or Queer. I think they had the guy that's writing, unless the guy that's writing Sergeant Rock and him have worked together in the past. So maybe they are like a combo that, if you bring the writer on, you bring the director on. I was thinking that maybe they brought the director on because he had the attachment to Daniel Craig. But with Daniel Craig no longer being attached to this film, maybe there's some time that they can maybe switch out the director, if the rumors are true that the studio doesn't feel super confident about him directing this film. So I do think that's a possibility for a change in director at some point in time. But I hope this movie happens. They clearly have been trying to make a Sergeant Rock movie for years over at Warner Brothers, and I think you've got the better people in regards to Peter Safran and James Gunn to go ahead and make that happen. I mean, they just announced a Clayface movie, which is going to have like a $40 million budget. Now we have a Sergeant Rock movie that's going to be $65 to $70 million. I think financially, like fiscally, they're definitely responsible in regards to like how much money they're spending towards these films, to where the likelihood of them having a profitability is certainly key, and I think a really good chance of certainly happening here. So I think this movie finally happens. It's just going to be it's just going to be a long wait, Stuart. It's just going to be a long wait for this movie to actually come to fruition. I do want to know your thoughts. Let me see if I had this article up. I think I might have closed it down, but the idea of them hunting for the spear of destiny, before it gets into the hands of the Nazis, and the fact that they're casting for the Easy Company already. You say Nazis, you say Easy Company. I still think um GI Robot ends up being in this movie in some capacity, or at least I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But I don't know, when I hear Spear of Destiny, I don't know why, like, the thought of like a Vandal Savage comes to mind also in regards to it. Um as like maybe a main villain working alongside with the Nazis in here. What do you think about the potential of just the concept of what they're kind of going for?
A lot of this I really like, and yeah, like you said, Vandal Savage. That is exactly who I would think of being involved in something like this. Mostly because, like, I grew up on the Justice League cartoon, so he was the one that kind of helped shift the war. Like, basically, went back in time, shift the war. So the Nazis were the ones who ended up winning the war. So the Justice League had to go back in time and prevent that. So for him to be around during that era, and then also being involved with the Spear of Destiny, because he would have, of course, been alive during the assassinate or during the killing of Jesus. Yeah, I think like that you have the making for a really badass kind of creative World War II fantasy film. And dude, they got to have GI Robot in at this point, because GI Robot has become so popular amongst everyone. Even people who have not seen Creature Commando love GI Robot. So there is no way they would do this movie without GI Robot. I don't think. Or if they did, I feel like that would be like such a big missed opportunity for them. If they wanted like an easy return in the box office. So I would assume that GI Robot would be involved in some way, shape, or form. The Spear of Destiny is definitely a really cool direction to take it, because that's where they went with the Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves. They also had like a season of Legends of Tomorrow, which involved the Spear of Destiny. And yeah, I think that it's kind of a fun MacGuffin that you could definitely play with. And then, of course, even though like well, technically this happened in real life, but obviously it's been over exaggerated through the media. But the whole like involving Hitler's like obsession with like religious artifacts,
Oh yeah.
I'm always a sucker for that kind of a storyline. I love it when it's done in like the Indiana Jones movies. It's always such a fun concept, even though it's like such a small thing that he did that suddenly like it gets like overblown in media. You know what I mean? But like it's always kind of fascinating to explore like different sides of World War II, different, or by that I mean like looking at it through like a completely different like angle, in the sense of like now you're looking at it through the lens of a fantasy universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think First Avenger kind of did something along those lines too, in the sense of,
Yeah.
the the Red Skull, teasing that, Hitler had this fascination with like these type of artifacts, these supernatural artifacts and stuff, and him hunting down the Tesseract and whatnot, like kind of taking those aspects of history and broadening them, and being a little bit more fantastical and extraordinary with them. So I'm definitely a fan of something along those lines. And if also, I will say this: it is one of those cases too where I think the fact that James Gunn is making movies that aren't necessarily a part of his original announcement for his chapter one slate, and something like seeing really good scripts come his way that he thinks, man, this would make sort of a great film. He's clearly done that with Clayface. And the idea that he sees something like that in a Sergeant Rock film, to want to even go so far into sort of pre-production that they certainly have, there's a part of me that makes me think, I don't know if James Gunn wants to lose that opportunity and throw something like that away, regardless if the movie is being delayed. I think he probably would rather have a really great script and make a film and delay it, rather than sort of just toss it aside and realize we're just going to move forward with other things anymore. So I think the fact that another great script certainly came his way that he wasn't planning on making, but it was so good that he had to. I think you hold on to scripts like that and don't necessarily completely cancel that at the end of the day. So I do expect this movie to certainly still be made. And what I take away from it is more postponed than canceled at this point. But we'll definitely have to see.
I would
But
definitely agree with that. I would also say that I think the reason James Gunn never announced it officially is because he probably knew this would be a difficult movie to film, and that's probably why. It's that he knew it was going to get like pushed back or something.
yeah, possibly. That could he. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess when you are in hindsight, when you're working behind the scenes for this stuff, and you see how casting's coming along, you see what the date is, you see like how long it might take for some set designs to start being built, sort of thing. Like maybe you're really pushing the very tail end of summer as it is. And yeah, maybe production just kind of I don't want to say got away from them, but it's happening a little bit later than they expected, especially I think with the casting of Colin Farrell coming in kind of late. I think maybe had they nailed the casting originally a couple of months ago, maybe pre-production would have gone a little bit smoother than what it is. But now they're finding themselves sort of at the tail end of things. So yeah, maybe the smarter money is to, if you can keep your cast around and they understand that the summer 2026 is going to happen, I think certainly postpone it if you can. So we'll see. But that's what I'm kind of taking away from it for sure.
Yep.
Um, Also on the DCU side of things, we do have ourselves an update in regards to Clayface. We've been wondering when this film is certainly going to go into production, and we might have gotten that tidbit of information as well. According to some sources, it says, according to the Rap's Humberto Gonzalez, Clayface will officially begin its production on October 1st of this year. It says that means DC fans might not have to wait too much longer for some casting announcements regarding Clayface. It has not been yet revealed who will play the main character. It says sources say the film is budgeted at $40 million and is a Hollywood horror tale centering on a B movie actor who injects himself with a substance to keep himself relevant, only to find out that he can reshape his face and form, becoming a walking piece of clay. Further details remain under wraps at this time. Whether or not Batman shows up in the film remains to be seen. But yeah, so right now, Clayface is set to go into production October of this year. And the movie is set to have a September 2026 release as well. So yeah, a nice little update for Clayface as well. I was thinking Clayface would kind of go into production sooner than that. But maybe they've probably figured like, well, now that we have the Sergeant Rock movie postponed or pushed down the line, maybe this is where we can sort of shift gears and put Clayface in that particular position. But for a September release on a film that's only $40 million, I'm not necessarily worried about. I think sometimes I think we think that movie productions take forever. Like, man, how can you have a movie done in like a year's time or 9 to 10 months sort of thing? But again, I think based off of a 40 million production budget, once they have all their pre-production and everything, I think filming probably takes maybe like 2-3 months maybe. And then if you got such a small budget, I'm not expecting the big sort of special effects fiasco. So I definitely do think I have no worries about Clayface not hitting its release date, Stuart.
Yeah, I think with Clayface, like if they're starting in October, yeah, I don't think it's going to be a long way to, especially with this being like a lower budget film. So the overall film time probably won't even be that long. Like I would imagine probably like a 3-month shoot at the most. And then, I'm assuming that the post-production effects won't be done until like the climax of the film. I assume they're going to go in kind of a Oh God, what was that movie that just came out? The Substance, yeah, like they could go kind of the Substance route.
I still
Wait till
haven't
like
seen that movie, but I've heard good
ooh,
things about it.
it is so good. Highly
Yeah.
recommend it.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. I might be a little bit too optimistic here, but I think there's a reality where we could actually get this movie by Halloween of next year.
Oh yeah, I think the release is like September or something.
Oh, they already announced. I didn't know they had a release in mind. Never mind.
Yeah, I think it's
So
September 2026.
okay, if they wanted to delay it 2 months, I would be totally fine with that. Just saying, this feels like a Halloween kind of movie, but however they want to do it.
Yeah, I would be completely down for that for sure if they want to take full advantage of it. A couple of things from Marcelino here. Going back to Sergeant Rock, could we also get to see a different reincarnation of Hawkgirl in Sergeant Rock? Look, I think the
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
well, yeah, I mean, I if anything, I would be kind of curious as to one. Um, I'm still trying to figure out who Isabella Merced is playing in Superman. Do all of the is every like iteration of Hawkgirl, is she like is reincarnation part of every aspect of a Hawkgirl that we've seen? Do you know?
Only the main Hawk Girl from the because I know that there's currently two Hawk Girls in DC, or I think one of them's Hawk Woman, I think. But regardless, one of them is the one that has like the whole resurrection thing. Her and then Hawk Man. I gotta remember the names of these. Hang on. But
Because
yeah,
I
the one from Justice League, technically they kind of retconned that backstory for her, but they also then tried to bring it back for her. But yeah, that is one of the Hawk girls that have that background. I think the one in James Gunn's Superman movie, I think James Gunn specifically said that's not the Hawk girl that we're getting, but I could be wrong.
I yeah, it says no, not all Hawkgirl characters are explicitly be depicted as having reincarnation, although it is a prominent aspect of some of the characters' origins. The characters are Kendra Saunders and Shira Sanders, who are both considered to be Hawkgirls, have specific histories involving reincarnation. However, the other Hawkgirl character, Shayara Thal, has been portrayed as Thangarian from another planet and not necessarily tied to the concept of reincarnation. So okay, so yeah, so there are several. There are so you're right, Stuart. There are some Hawk girls that do have the idea of reincarnation. I kind of like the concept of reincarnation. I would be interested if you can mold like both of them into like one particular character. Um, I do like the idea of reincarnation. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping that James Gunn goes with. But if not, I don't know. I am curious if you can introduce another Hawk girl in Sergeant Rock. I probably wouldn't go that route personally. Just to like not confuse people. I would like Isabella Merced um to be the only Hawk girl in this universe. But if she is the only Hawk girl, I do hope that it is a reincarnated version, so she can pop up in Sergeant Rock. But I don't know. We'll see what they do. Um, Marcelino, with the budget of being 40 million, how much of his powers are we going to see? Some wanted to see a full range of his powers with the giant blob and are tired of the grounded nature. Um,
Um,
you were mentioning something sort of about you think maybe they'll hold off on something along those lines towards like the climax of a film.
That's how I think they're going to do it. Like you're going to get bits and pieces. Like if I were doing it this way with a $40 million movie, the way I would do it is I would kind of go body horror. And the best way to do body horror is you do like small things at a time. Like, whether it's, teeth falling out, or whether it's, oh, I got this scratch on my face that constantly gets bigger every time we see it. So I think that's the route they would go with Clayface if they want to kind of really bring in the horror aspect of the character. Yeah, so I think I totally forgot what the question even was.
No, just how much of his powers do you think we'll
Oh,
see?
yeah, so I think like we won't fully get to utilize his range of powers until the very end. I think that'll be like either when he finally figures out how to control it, or when he loses control out of it. And I think that'll be when we get the full range. One thing we have to keep in mind though too, is because I'm not sure if this is meant to be like the original Clayface, because there have been other people that have gotten the same powers and have taken up the name of Clayface in the comic books. So we still don't know if it's going to be the same Clayface that we saw in Creature Commando, or if it's going to be an entirely new character altogether. But if it is the original Clayface, I would have to assume that this is like a prequel then, because obviously they kind of
Like the
imply he
origin
died.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this feels very much like a prequel to me in the sense of how he became Clayface, that maybe eventually later turns into that monster that we see in something like Creature Commandos. It also feels like a little bit of that Amazon Prime animated Batman series of that route of the actor, trying to keep his sort of good looks, and then things kind of go a little bit out of control, if you will. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with this one for sure. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to Sergeant Rock possibly being postponed to summer 2026. Do you think this movie still holds up till next year for filming, or do you think this will be one of those films that will get scrapped entirely? But yeah, I don't. I'm curious. Would you consider this a blemish on the DC studios already? Like an unforced error? Like, I wonder, some people view this as like, up here we go, like they're canceling films, or do you think this is not as serious as people might make it out to be?
I think it's a bit too early to say, honestly. I think if I want to wait till we get like the DC movies coming into theaters and then kind of make my judgment on whether or not they're canceling movies way too fast.
Like the fast.
Yeah, because I think if anything, like the thing that they're the only kind of blemish I would say on DC is like the things being announced when there's no plan for him to go into post production. For example, with Brave and the Bold, that one being announced early on, but it sounds like they haven't even come up with a good script yet. Which again, I want to emphasize like I love that they're not going to shoot something unless they got a good script. I think that is awesome of James Gunn, but I also think then if you aren't sure where a script is at the moment, maybe hold off on announcing it.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely also some projects like well, we are getting Supergirl, we are getting the Lanterns. Those were both on the list of Chapter 1 titles. I think people are looking like, where's our Wonder Woman, where's our Batman, some of the other bigger characters. The last I heard, James Gunn said Paradise Lost, which is a Wonder Woman sort of prequel, is very much in pre-development. They are currently working on that. It certainly has some movement. And James Gunn has been pretty adamant that come 2027, we will have some type of Batman in theaters, whether that's a Batman Part 2 or whether that's Brave and the Bold. But I think he himself is I don't know if he's working on the script, but it seems as though he himself is really pushing for Brave and the Bold to be to kind of come together. So I think there are some movements happening on at least those two projects. And I still think we get ourselves a Swamp Thing by James Mangold. I just don't know if that's James Mangold's next project, or if he's going to be working on Star Wars next. So we'll definitely have to see. But right now we've got one movie for 2025 in Superman, and we still have two movies for 2026 in Supergirl and Clayface as of right now. I can't remember how many movies James Gunn said he wanted to do for the DCU each year. Something tells me like 2 movies a year or maybe 3 movies a year. So as of right now, they're hitting their quotas, I think. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I'm sure people are really excited and trying to wait patiently for a Wonder Woman or Batman project at this point. So we'll see. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to the updates for Sergeant Rock along with Clayface. And with that out of the way, Stuart, let's move on to our next title as we transition from the DCU to the MCU. As after the wildly successful entry for Ryan Reynolds into the MCU with Deadpool and Wolverine, we're trying to figure out when exactly we're going to see some of these characters again. Whether that be they pop up in Avengers Doomsday or something as big as Avengers Secret Wars. We already know when it comes to the X-Men that we expect to see some of them already in Avengers Doomsday, as the casting announcements certainly reveal to us. They've gone on to say that not all the casting announcements have in fact been made for Doomsday. So is there potential for a Hugh Jackman as Wolverine or a Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool to pop up in either of these movies at some point in time? Regardless if they pop up in these two films, we do know that the X-Men are certainly coming. The mutant saga is set to go ahead and begin after all of this. And Stuart, Ryan Reynolds seems to be having plans or making plans to kind of inject himself into this mutant saga in some capacity. This past week, we wind up getting some news that Ryan Reynolds may be working on a brand new Deadpool project. So let's go ahead and dive into this and see exactly what they're talking about here. This comes to us from THR, the Hollywood Reporter. Ryan Reynolds in early stages of exploring a Deadpool X-Men team-up movie. This is an exclusive report from them here. It says, now 9 months after Deadpool and Wolverine became the top-grossing R-rated movie of all time, Reynolds is quietly plotting his return to the character, but true to his word, it won't be as the lead of a solo movie. It says Ryan Reynolds is exploring ideas for a Deadpool movie that feature X-Men characters, as well as continuing to script the Paramount comedy Boy Band after making writing a priority for much of this year before tackling other obligations. The multi hyphenate is working on various treatments for an ensemble film featuring 3 or 4 X-Men characters. Deadpool would, of course, appear, but perhaps only as a supporting player. Reynolds is said to believe that keeping his F-bomb wielding anti-hero more on the sidelines could allow for the X-Men characters to be used in unexpected ways. Reynolds has been open about every Deadpool movie needing a strong reason to exist, and it's possible this could provide the avenue that he needs. The potential film is separate from a potential X-Men movie that Hunger Games writer Michael Leslie is penning for Marvel Studios. There's no word on which characters Reynolds is toying with, though Oscar-nominated Wicked star Cynthia Erivo, whom Reynolds honored at the National Board of Review, has publicly lobbied to play Storm in the MCU. Reynolds would need to defer to Marvel on any of these casting decisions. It's extremely early days and far from becoming a reality, and Reynolds, known for tinkering with concepts he hopes to share with Marvel in the future, is working separate from the studio at this stage. It's not unusual for Reynolds to go through many iterations before landing on the right idea. Before Deadpool and Wolverine, one idea he pitched for Deadpool 3 was a low-budget road trip movie. So yeah, Ryan Reynolds is currently working on a very early script. It says various treatments again have featuring 3 to 4 X-Men characters. Deadpool would appear, of course, but perhaps only as a supporting player. It looks like he's working on this separate from the studio itself and hasn't necessarily approached them in this regards to be like, hey, will this work? So we'll see how this plays out. You know, Stuart, the first thing that comes to mind when I read this, and just based off of Deadpool's interaction in Marvel Comics, you know, two titles come to mind. One, I think, has kind of already been explored in something like a Deadpool 2, and that could potentially be the X-Force. I think maybe when he was originally introduced as a character, he was introduced in the X-Force comic books alongside Cable, along with Domino and things like that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, though, in the live chat. So we've kind of seen like the concept of an X-Force team in Deadpool 2. But I am curious if we wind up getting a new MCU, if that's kind of established possibly in a completely different format, new team members, if you will. I think even Shatterstar was in the lineup for Deadpool 2, if I'm not mistaken. That would be my first iteration. When you talk about him and an ensemble of characters, X Force immediately kind of comes to mind. There have been different variations of X Force over the years. I remember within like the past maybe 5 or 10 years, I can't remember who the writing team was, but they were very much like the team certainly sent on to do these like really impossible missions. I would really love to see X Force kind of brought to the big screen in its own title. So X Force is one of them. And I think there's also a possibility of like a Weapon X film happening here too, considering Deadpool being a part of that program along with something like Logan. Maybe we even get ourselves like our introduction to like an Omega Red, like any characters that I think have been Maverick. I think any characters that have been involved in the Weapon X project could potentially be put together in like an ensemble group that I would be really fascinated to kind of see. It would give them the opportunity to give us some brand new characters, with Deadpool kind of being the anchor to that of somebody that we're certainly very familiar with, and bringing sort of the humoristic aspect of the film. So those would be the two things that kind of come to mind. But take into consideration, this is very, very early development. This isn't like this is in the pipeline to actually be made yet. It sounds as though this is a very, like, he's clearly working on various script drafts to kind of come up with an idea that he likes. Then he's got to approach Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios to see if something like this would even work. I got to assume that Kevin Feige is aware that he's writing something. And then whether or not it's up to par or it fits into their overall scheme, then maybe they wind up sort of creating it. But we have been wondering when the Merc with a Mouth would certainly return. And I think this would be a really great way of injecting him into the mutant saga without necessarily making him a member of the X-Men. I think Reynolds has talked about the idea of like Deadpool wants to become a member of the X-Men so badly, but if you do that, it's sort of like the end of his story. So I don't necessarily know if they would make him a part of the X-Men immediately, but making him a part of another group of mutants, I think would certainly work really well. So I kind of dig this idea. I'm kind of curious to know what you think, Stuart, when you hear what Ryan Reynolds is trying to put together.
Yeah, I'm kind of more in that line of you know, just make it an X-Force movie, because that's kind of something that you'd been working on, that you'd been teasing since Deadpool 2. So I think that's kind of a cool direction you can go in with it. I do like that Ryan Reynolds, loves his own like involvement within the Marvel movies, and that he, doesn't seem to want to retire anytime soon. So whether or not his pitch to Marvel ends up being something good, I hope like at the very least they can look at the fact that he still wants to continue to playing Deadpool, and they use that as, hey, we don't really like the script, but we like some of the pieces here, so we can make a movie out of this, or something along those lines. So it's, and that's kind of what happened with Deadpool and Wolverine. It was like the whole idea that originally it was going to be a weird Christmas road trip movie where like Deadpool fights Santa Claus, and it's like I don't think it would have been a very good movie if they went with that, but I like that Marvel Studios still wanted to make a Deadpool movie with Ryan Reynolds' involvement. So I think that, like, yeah, from hearing like the pitches that Ryan Reynolds has given for his movies, I think it's good to have him involved, but maybe not have him be like the main writer of these films. Have him work with other people, definitely. But yeah, like I like the idea of him continuing his role as Deadpool. I would be curious if they would keep him, if they would move him into the MCU then, if he was leading a team of X-Men, or if they would keep him in the Fox universe, so the X-Men that he's leading wouldn't have to worry about connecting it with Marvel in any way. They'd still be able to keep him like leading his own separate team of X-Men.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I at this point, with what I would assume would be the incursions happening, with the amalgamation of all these universes maybe coming together for something like an Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. When we come out the other end, I don't expect the Fox universe to even be a thing anymore. I think I'm assuming the MCU is going to be all that there certainly is. But I do think you might be right in the sense of like, how much will they allow him to play with well-known characters. Um, I think if there is a well-known character that they would allow him to play with, it would be Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, in the sense of them teaming up again in some capacity. And I think that's probably, I think you can get away with a Weapon X project or an X Force project, because outside of somebody like um, a Wolverine, you can sort of introduce not well-known mutants into the world, in that regards, maybe not necessarily like A tier X-Men characters that we know might be in like the main X-Men, but other mutants that have impact in the world that can establish themselves. Maybe you put those kind of characters with Deadpool to kind of eventually elevate them to higher well-known status. Like, you could make an Omega Red as a villain for an X-Men movie, but you could also make him a member of something like a Weapon X or X Force, and it'd be like a character that maybe they hadn't planned on utilizing in the main title for X-Men, but still kind of establish him that way. So I do think it allows Ryan Reynolds to play with characters that maybe not so well known or haven't really been introduced in the live action format, that can help sort of elevate them to a higher status at some point in time. So I would be interested to see if they're open to this idea. But I do expect Deadpool to be back in some way, and I am glad about what you said in the sense of like, because it's early production, even though he's got the script, it doesn't mean that some of the things that they use will be used or won't be used. That Kevin Feige can say, I like the bones of what the script looks like. Let's bring in some other writers to really kind of flesh this out a little bit more to fit into our world. I definitely do think that that's a possibility, Stuart, for sure.
Yeah, because I think we love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. We as fans is what I mean, and I think Disney knows that the fans love his portrayal of as Deadpool, and I don't think they want to give that up anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He certainly brings in money for them as Deadpool, and so I think in some capacity they'll definitely listen to Ryan Reynolds, or at least take his ideas um, for certainly what it's worth, and build upon them. So we'll see. Again, this feels very much in very early pre-production, so I'm not expecting an official announcement for any of this anytime soon. But it is fascinating to see exactly where Ryan Reynolds' head is at in regards to involving not only Deadpool but other X-Men characters down the line. So we'll see. We'll see what type of film we wind up getting. We want to know your thoughts, though. You hear this from Ron Reynolds, the concepts that he's kind of working with. Do you think this has the making of an X-Force movie, a Weapon X film, something else in particular that we're certainly not thinking about? I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. Datila, what's up, Datila? Happy Star Wars Day, Adam. Happy Star Wars Day, guys. Good to see you, Datila. Thank you so much for certainly coming through today. And Stuart, with that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic here. We're going to stay in the realm of the MCU as we transition from the X-Men back to our Avengers team, as Jeremy Renner is back in the news here this week. We haven't heard from Hawkeye himself in quite some time. It's certainly been a minute since we've last seen him, which was in the Hawkeye television series. But since we've seen him, Jeremy Renner has been through hell, Stuart, and I think that might even be an understatement, to be honest with you. Since he had the tragic accident of being run over by, what was this, snowplow or something along those lines, like just really destroyed this man's body. He had himself an incredibly painful and long recovery, skirting death, and continuing to stay with us after all this time. I mean, Jeremy Renner has definitely put a lot of time and energy into rebuilding his body, rebuilding who he certainly is as a person. And he seems to want to make a comeback. I don't know. I've seen him in some commercials. I don't know if I've seen him in movies since his accident. If he has been in any other movies or television series since his accident, somebody please let me know in the live chat. But the potential for Jeremy Renner to return as Hawkeye, I think, is always available to him. But we did have an astounding revelation here this week, Stuart, from Jeremy Renner himself, saying that while there were certainly initially plans for a Hawkeye season 2, it sounds like the people at Disney have been lowballing this man in regards to negotiations of having him return. I don't know if this means that Hawkeye season 2 is not going to happen. I'm kind of under the impression that it certainly still might happen. But the question is whether or not Jeremy Renner will return. I think now is the bigger question. But let's go ahead and dive into this, Stuart, because I don't want to say I found it astounding, but it feels like Hollywood up to its Hollywood things again. But let's see. It says Jeremy Renner claims Disney only offered half his salary for a Hawkeye season 2. The actor says he was only offered a portion of his original salary after his devastating snowplow accident, is what he says. I did have, you know what? I was going to go ahead and have this to read this off, but I thought it'd be interesting to hear this from Jeremy Renner himself. Let me pull up, for those of you who haven't seen this interview, I want to go ahead and introduce this to you guys. Here we go. Oh, what's going on? Do I got to reload this thing? Hold on, let me see. Come on, Hollywood, what you doing, man? Now it was working for me all yesterday, bro. Now it don't want to work for me. Hold on, let me stop this. Damn it, Stuart.
Just like bouncing all over the place.
All over the place. All right, maybe you know what? I'm gonna read it off then, and then in the meantime, I'll see if it stabilizes itself to allow me to. Maybe I'll let this do its thing, and then I'll come back to it. All right. So,
oh, I think I just figured out why, because I think it uses a link from TikTok, and for some reason, playing TikTok like off of like a browser, yeah, it always like glitches. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for me yesterday. I was testing it, and I was like, okay, this works. But anyway, it says, speaking to High Performance Sports Podcast and sounding rather perturbed, Renner said, they asked me to do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money, 8 months of my time, essentially, and do it for half the amount. I'm like, I'm sorry, why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Is that why? Is that why you want to pay me half of what I made for the first season? He says, that said, a Disney insider contacted Hollywood Reporter disputing Renner's claim, but did not give specifics. But Renner did add in the interview, he says, and this is not Marvel. He says, my juice is like this. Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants. I told them to go fly a kite at the insult offer. And so we didn't see eye to eye on it, sadly. I still love the character. I would still love to do it, but I have to defend myself. I didn't ask for any more money, mind you. Just pay me what you paid me the first season. So it's a little disheartening that didn't happen, but that's fine. I'm happy to let that go because my body's probably thanking me that I'm not doing that right now. So yeah, the first season of Hawkeye scored some pretty good positive scores from Rotten Tomatoes, even 88% for audience score and things like that. So the idea of a return to form didn't seem too out of bounds.
To do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money, and so 8 months of my time essentially, and to do it for half the amount. I'm like, I'm sorry, why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half of what I made on the first season? And this is not Marvel, mind you. This is like this Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants. I told them to go fly a kite. I mean, just at the insult offer, and we didn't see eye to eye on that. And sadly, and I still love the character, I still love to do it, but I had to defend myself. I didn't ask for any more money, mind you, right? It just paid me what I made the first season. So it was a little disheartening that that didn't happen, but that's fine. I'm happy to let that go because my body's probably thanking me, time and time again that I'm not doing it right now. But we'll see.
So yeah, that's Jeremy Renner on the idea of potentially not coming back for Hawkeye season 2. Stuart, do you think do you think Hawkeye season 2 happens regardless if Renner comes back? And what do you think about the lowball offer here? Do you think it makes sense? Do you think there's a lot of stuff kind of going on here that explains why they want to only pay him half? Maybe his role's been reduced. I don't know. How do you feel after hearing this particular story from Jeremy?
I'll answer the second part of the question first because it leads into my answer for the first part of the question. To answer the second part of the question, yeah, with overall them lowballing, it sucks. But I'm also not shocked because this is the kind of stuff that Disney does all the time. Essentially, in the point of view of people like Bob Iger or just like the big CEOs at Disney, we're not actually people. We are cogs in a machine. So the way Disney sees someone like Jeremy Renner, who was in a really bad accident, is that he is a broken cog. So why would they pay, for a full price for a piece that, they'll have to like kind of do some maintenance on, and I just want everyone to know that it's not how I think of it. All right. Yeah. I'm speaking specifically from the perspective of Disney CEOs who, people who have so much money, they don't look at us like actual human beings, basically. So I think this means one of two things. It means either one, they never had a plan on making a Hawkeye season 2, so they purposely lowballed him knowing that he was going to turn it down. Or two, they want to do a Hawkeye season 2. They just didn't care whether or not Jeremy Renner was involved because they already have introduced the next Hawkeye. So it doesn't matter to them one way or another. Yeah, so all that to be said, I think it's really good for Jeremy Renner's for not wanting to take up that offer and just being like, no, just because I had a severe accident, I'm still worth the same. I'm still the same person I was before. And I think it's, definitely good for him to stick to his guns and, not let them lowball him like that. Because the moment you do something like that, that's when Disney's going to go, oh, okay, so we can lowball this guy. So then they're going to try to lowball him again for the next project they want him to be a part of. So good on him. What I hope kind of comes from this, though, is that the next time they need him, I hope they kind of remember that he is not afraid to turn down a really bad offer, and he's not afraid to go public about the really bad offer that they gave him. So I hope they just kind of keep that in mind for next time. And I think that in general, not just Jeremy Renner, but more actors should be upfront about turning things down for this kind of reason. Because, don't get me wrong. It's like, it's an amount of money, which to me would have been a lot. Don't get me wrong. But of course, it's kind of the whole principle of the thing, though. It's like, if you've already established this is how much I'm worth, it's not fair for you to go back just because I was in an accident. So yeah, I think my overall thoughts, good for Jeremy Renner,
Yeah, I would agree. It is, and you bring up the idea of Hollywood in this regards, and this does feel like some Hollywood BS to me, in the sense of like, and I'm glad that Jeremy called them out for what it is. I think there are a couple things here. Okay, I do think that I do think there's an aspect of like, okay, if we want to do a Hawkeye season 2, Hawkeye season 2 might focus a little bit more on Kate Bishop's character. And so therefore maybe Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton maybe isn't in the film or isn't in the series as much as we would like. So we think that we can maybe offer him a little bit less. But I do think that there's like an underlining thing that happens in Hollywood. Like when something bad happens to an actor, it almost feels like it undervalues them all of a sudden. Like whether you become an older actor in Hollywood, you don't get as many gigs. People don't think they need to pay you as much. It's harder to kind of get gigs out there. I've seen like older actors kind of call this stuff out. And also, it's almost feels like Hollywood almost waits for something tragic to happen in your life or something life changing in your life to then feel like they can start lowballing you. And so the fact that he calls it out, like, why? Because I got ran over by a snowplow. You don't think that I'm as good or as capable as I used to be in order to kind of do this. And so you want to kind of like now pay me less. Whether that was their mindset or not, I feel like there are sometimes that is the mindset of Hollywood behind the scenes, because they like you said, they view you as a commodity in a sense of how much can we get out of this person, and just part of the overall machine. And if they can get away with paying you less for any particular reason, they certainly will find that reason to do so. So the fact that Jeremy Renner, who's always been very open about his feelings and if he's been wronged, or he has no problem calling people out, I am glad that he called him out in that regards. And it is just one of those things too, like Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye is a legacy character. You know, like at the end of Endgame, he was on part of that cast that had the great outro with the hand signature and stuff, right? Like he is like Hall of Fame status for the Avengers in that regards. And I think if there's anybody worth paying to have them come back, even if it's in a limited capacity, it should be those core members for sure. And so I do hope it is. Again, this, I think this is just negotiations too, in the sense of, maybe they were displeased they couldn't get Renner to come back for Hawkeye season 2 for that amount, but maybe kind of going forward, if they want him back in like a Doomsday or a Secret Wars, they'll keep this sort of negotiation sort of in mind in regards to how it went, and maybe kind of course correct going forward. Because if Jeremy Renner is capable of being Hawkeye again, if he wants to reprise his role in any capacity, pay this man what he certainly deserves. Because without Jeremy Renner as part of this group, we don't have the Avengers. And so I do think that there's a level of, continuing to honor what he provided for us. So a little bit bummed. I still think that we get Hawkeye season 2. Maybe we don't. I don't know. Maybe the way that Marvel is now reassessing things, maybe a Hawkeye season 2 necessarily isn't in play, but I would be open for one. And I feel like we've heard some movement maybe happening, but with the idea of Jeremy Renner not possibly not returning, it does make me wonder if that's something that we'll even get in the future. There's so many pieces kind of be rearranged right now. Stuart, do you think that we get a season 2 of Hawkeye for like Kate Bishop, or do you think her story will be told elsewhere? I think you're muted.
I think there's a good possibility we get a season 2 regardless. I think it's going to depend on. I feel like my answer will completely change based on her role in Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars, depending on which one she's in. But I think that's what it's kind of going to depend on, is how much people enjoy watching her in one of those two movies.
Yeah, I think there is a part of me that while I want a Hawkeye season 2, there's a part of me that thinks that there may not necessarily be a need for it. Because I am kind of curious with them, the way that they're doing Marvel television now. I still say Marvel television should be made for shows that really have no interconnectedness to the overall MCU. I think they should be really standalone stories and maybe focus on characters that aren't part of the Avengers team in that capacity. So maybe you can get away with the Kate Bishop story for season 2. But I would almost be worried if it's like, is that more homework that viewers would have to do to fully understand who Kate Bishop is as a character if they then see her pop up kind of in a movie? And so there's a part of me that almost feels like I want to regulate Kate Bishop to just the movies and kind of move on from that. Because I think season 1 for Hawkeye can certainly stand on its own without us needing one. But I would like a season 2 personally. But I don't think we get it. I don't think we get it.
Mm.
Marceline says, for me personally, if we do a second season of Hawkeye, I think it should only focus on Kate and establishing the Young Avengers, while Clint Barton himself appears outside of a cameo or two. He says, if they do a season 2 of Hawkeye, which comics run would you have liked to see get adapted next? I'm not too familiar with Hawkeye storylines or Kate Bishop storylines as Hawkeye, so I can't really answer that question. I don't know. Do you know of any, Stuart, off the top of your head?
I do not know.
Yeah, I don't think so either. When you think about Loki as the only main MCU TV show that have gotten second season, and that's embarrassing. I mean, I don't know if it's embarrassing or not. I kind of look at Agatha all along as like a season 2 to WandaVision almost, or a quasi season 2. I don't know if I find it embarrassing so much as Loki just had a really great, compelling story to certainly be told. But yeah, I mean, I guess like Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have been nice, but looking back at things now, I don't know what their initial plans were, Stuart. I think a lot of these were always meant to be limited series. I don't believe that they were meant to have season 2s unless it's something that really just struck a chord with the audience. But my mindset has always been these are limited series to introduce characters into the MCU who we would later learn about and see involved on the movie side of things.
Yeah, I think they only had season 2 in mind if like the show was like unexpectedly like a huge success. And I think with Loki, the reason that was like the exception was because like not only was it a success, but there were actually some multiple directions where they could go with it. And then it was also the only one that really ended on a cliffhanger because Falcon and the Winter Soldier, all the other ones like kind of wrapped up their stories by the end of it. Same with Hawkeye. So like even with Hawkeye, I still don't really think you need a season 2. I think you could just continue Kate Bishop's story through other like movies, other media. So like I think like most of them were made with the limited series in mind, and I think that Loki was just kind of the one exception. And then maybe there were a couple others, but they didn't get like the numbers they were hoping for. Because I feel like Moon Knight was kind of written with the idea in mind that there would be multiple seasons, and I think the only reason they haven't announced a season 2 is because it wasn't the success they were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, WandaVision wind up continuing in Doctor Strange. So I felt like the first initial batch of Marvel series were meant to be limited. Miss Marvel, I think, probably would have been like their biggest opportunity to do a second season with it. Even though Moon Knight did end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, did end on a cliffhanger too,
yeah.
To warrant that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe numbers wise, it just wasn't there for them. And then they kind of maybe started seeing the quality of these shows go down, so they wind up changing course. But yeah, I don't know if I would say it's an embarrassment so much as I think the initial plan was limited series all along. With the potential for expanding upon it if they wanted to, and they just never had that opportunity to. But I'm kind of okay with it. Like I'm kind of okay with the new route of, if we're gonna make Marvel television, let's just make it very similar to what they did in the past, Stuart. I when they made a decision of canceling a lot of their Marvel television shows from the past, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, like all those other projects that they had, at the time it happened, I did not like the idea of it, because they wanted to then make everything, even their television aspect, connect to the bigger MCU. And I felt like that was just I felt like that was going to take away from a lot of potential characters that could have their own solo run on television, but then became so dependent on what the MCU was certainly going to do. I thought it was a mistake at the time, and it's taken them, unfortunately, an entire saga to realize that that was certainly a mistake on their part. That now that they're going back to the idea of Marvel television not being so interconnected and being its own standalone series, it does feel like we're just going back to where we were like 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, whatever the case may be. So I'm okay with the MCU focusing mostly just in the movie realm of things. And if you do want to utilize other characters to make Marvel television, that's fine, but just don't make it dependent on viewers to have to watch those to understand any of these other characters or what's going on in the bigger MCU. And I feel like that's the route that they're going right now. So we'll see what Marvel television turns out to be, and we'll see if we end up eventually getting ourselves a Hawkeye season 2 or not. But let us know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. All right, guys. And with that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic, because we're going to get into some movies and televisions for you guys. First up, Stuart, look, we've got a big horror film about to hit us like a juggernaut, honestly, with the writer and director from Barbarian, Zach Cregger, is in fact back, as he's got himself a brand new film titled Weapons. They dropped a trailer for this week also. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, it is currently up on our YouTube page right now. But Zach Cregger is a hot name in Hollywood. Not only does he have Weapons coming out, but he's also attached to the upcoming Resident Evil reboot films that he plans on working. But after his success at Barbarian, people have been eager to see what this man is going to do next. And he dropped the brand new trailer this past week titled Weapons. Stuart, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to check out this trailer. Have you, by any chance?
I don't think so. No.
They dropped the trailer, and then they also dropped a great Entertainment Weekly article that I want to go ahead and talk with you guys about. I may not necessarily go through the entirety of the article itself, but I just thought it would be pretty eye-opening to understand and learn a little bit more about his next upcoming film in Weapons that I believe comes out in June. I can't remember, but we'll find out here in just a minute. But if you have not had the opportunity to check out the trailer for Weapons, Stuart, let's give this a shot, man.
Let's do it.
This is a true story that happened in my town. So this one Wednesday is like a normal day for the whole school. But today was different. Every other class had all their kids. But Mrs. Gandy's room was totally empty. And you know why? Because the night before, at 2:17 in the morning, every kid woke up, got out of bed, walked downstairs, and into the dark. And they never came back.
First off, can I just say, as the father of a kid now, this terrifies the hell out of me, bro.
Yeah.
This terrifies the hell out of me, especially because my kid is like 3.5 years old right now, and he somehow managed to learn how to unlock the front door. So like we've literally put the deadbolt on like in the middle at night before we go to bed, but like during the day it's usually off, and we maybe just have like the bottom door locked or the bottom knob locked, and he's managed to unlock the door now and go outside if he wants to. And I'm just like, dude, this terrifies me. This really terrifies me. But
so sorry, quick small tangent. So one thing my mom used to say is that she used to be like super judgmental of like parents that couldn't keep track of their kids. So like anytime their kid went missing, she would just be like, if you just watch your kid. And then she gave birth to me, and I was just an explorer when I was like a toddler. So I used to disappear like all the time. And so she's just like, God did this to punish me.
Yeah, the fear could be real, man. But let's go ahead and continue with this.
I don't understand at all. Why just her classroom? Why only hers?
Where are our children?
We have a lot of emotional parents here. I think it's best if you keep some distance from this place.
Oh, hell to the nah. Nope. Nope.
Matthew, where are you? Where did you go?
Oh, shit.
This is where the story really starts.
Damn, bro. Yeah, that is Blossom says, I got a bad feeling this movie will make people scared of sending their kids off to school.
I mean, just turn on the news. Parents should already be terrified of sending their kids to school.
For real. For real. But yeah, that's the brand new trailer for Weapons that just dropped this week. Terrifying to the max. I love the fact that the trailer says, yeah, that's just where the story begins, in the sense of like the kids disappearing is just like the tip of the iceberg. If you've seen anything from Barbarians, you know there's always certainly more to the story. But from that, let's go ahead and dive into the article that Zach Cregger talked with Entertainment Weekly this week. Had a Weapons first look. Oh, by the way, they did also drop a brand new poster too to go along with it. I can't read the the font from up here, but this was the brand new poster that they wind up dropping with this movie. But it says this is the first look here. So it says the moment the clock turned 2:17 on a seemingly random Wednesday morning, 17 children in the fictional Pennsylvania town of Maybrook woke from their beds, exited their homes, and ran into the night. They never came back. Why did they do that? What happened to them? Are they still alive? Director Zach Cregger didn't have those answers when he started writing Weapons. It was a similar approach that he took with the 2022 instant horror hit Barbarian. He says, I didn't have an outline. I didn't know what it was about. He says, it was just like, let the movie show itself to me. I want to watch the movie as I'm writing it. As it turns out, everyone in Hollywood wanted the answers to those questions. And then there was a huge bidding war for this film back in January of 2023 with multiple studios circling it. He says it was stressful. Cregger said, sitting back at the same garage laundry room where he wrote Barbarian and Weapons. He says, people might think from the outside looking in that I was flinging dollar bills in the air and calling enemies saying, F you. He says, the truth of the matter is, it was a very high pressure thing and people were getting pissed and it was stressful. I didn't totally get to unclench and appreciate what happened until maybe a week or later after the dust settled and the adrenaline subsided. He says Cregger still feels more than 2 years later as if the other shoe is going to drop, but as long as he's in this position, he sees an opportunity. He says New Line ultimately won the bid, and now Weapons is set to go ahead and release August 8th. He says, similar to Barbarian, the surface level logline description about missing kids is but a tip of a massive and wildly complex iceberg. This is what the filmmaker says. He says that mystery is going to propel you through at least half of the movie, but that is not the movie. The movie will fork and change and reinvent and go in new places. It doesn't abandon that question, believe me, but that's not the whole movie at all. By the midpoint, we've moved on to way crazier shit than that. So it talks about some of the characters in here. Adding to the intrigue, Warner Brothers launched a website called MaybrookMissing.com, which contains fake news stories set within the movie, one of which covers the missing children. Another article, however, reports that a woman named Tess Marshall, which is Campbell's character in Barbarian, escaped from a Detroit rental property where police found a network of hidden tunnels. So is Weapons somehow connected to Barbarian? Cregger replies, I don't want to definitively say any way or the other. He says, however, It wasn't a normal circumstance for the filmmaker. It says Cregger found it difficult under normal circumstances to figure out how to capitalize on the moment of Barbarian's success and get his next project off the ground. He says, I had a tragedy in my life that was really, really tough. Someone very, very, very close to me died suddenly. And honestly, I was so grief stricken that I just started writing Weapons, not out of any ambition, but just as a way to reckon with my own emotions. Cregger is hesitant to even address what the story means to him. He feels that doing so would rob the audience of the opportunity to engage with the work on their own. But he calls Weapons an incredibly personal story. There's certain chapters of this that are legitimately autobiographical that I feel like I lived, is what he says. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is. Yeah, like a few things that stand out to me there. One, the tragedy. I'm curious if he was referring to his friend that was like part of because they were both part of the Whitest Kids You Know comedy group. So I'm wondering if that's who he was referring to, or if it was just another like big tragedy that he suffered at some point. But yeah, like finding out this might actually have some connective tissue with Barbarian also is kind of cool, even if it's not like directly like this is a sequel. If it's just like a small like tie-in, I think I love it when filmmakers do that. Like, you know, early Kevin Smith work, for example, like Mallrats isn't really a sequel to Clerks, but there's definitely some connective tissue there. I love it when directors do that kind of stuff. It just makes their world feel more like more fleshed out. But yeah, and then if Barbarian is if Barbarian is any indication, I think that Weapons is going to be incredible to watch when we find out what the actual movie is going to be about. Because you look at the teaser for Barbarian and how it seemed like the entire concept, the entire like tension was going to be from the concept of, oh, I booked an Airbnb which was already booked, and they make it seem like that's what the whole movie's going to be in the teaser. But then, like, you know, about probably a third of the way through, it goes in a completely different direction. I hope that's the kind of writing we get here with this kind of premise. I also just love the cast that we see in the trailer with Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, and Benedict Wong. Like all of those, I love those guys. So I think it's going to be great to see them in this kind of a role. But yeah, this movie gets me excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one too. I'm glad you brought up the cast. Julia Garner, I feel like, is everywhere these days. I just saw her in Wolfman, which she was great in, despite maybe the movie itself. Yeah, Josh Brolin's always a solid actor in anything that he does, and I think Julia Garner is also going to be our Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four. To look out for her this summer as well. So she's going to be everywhere this year. But the trailer itself looked frightening as hell, especially the final cuts to the trailer with all the different clips that we're getting. Children chasing after you through the neighborhood looks terrifying. I don't know what some of the somebody poking themselves in the face with a knife constantly over and over again. I mean, it looks bananas, bro. Like, I have no idea what we're getting ourselves into when it comes to Weapons, but I'm highly fascinated in it. And you know, you bring up a good point too in the idea of like, I kind of dig the idea that this being connected sort of like in the same universe. I don't know if this all takes place in the same town or not, but the fact that this recognizes other things within like a cinematic universe is fascinating to me. It kind of goes back a little bit to, I think, like classic Stephen King novels. You know, Stephen King utilizes recurring like fictional towns and fictional cities. Like Derry, I believe, from It is not just in It, but in like other books that he's certainly written. Also, Castle Rock is utilized in various numbers of Stephen King novels. Also, I mean, there's literally a Castle Rock television series, I think like 2 seasons of it, that focus on like 2 different Stephen King novels. So it definitely feels like that Stephen King-esque aspect of filmmaking that I'm a really big fan of. They may not necessarily need to have connective tissues from a story point of view, but there is something cool about cities and towns that just have like these supernatural things and horrific things that continue to happen in them, and playing off of them from the same filmmaker. So you know, if Weapons is successful, while I know that Zach Cregger is going to be going on to other things like Resident Evil, I hope that he continues to make original content. And I don't want to say build a cinematic universe around it, but kind of play in the same world where all these events kind of take place. Is something that I'm kind of interested in. And I think too, his idea that he's tapping into something here that is a little bit personal for him. One, sounds horrifying. And I say that because just based off of the trailer alone, I'm like, wait, so you mean there's something in this movie that is like literal to like what you've experienced, or like a at least metaphorical in the sense of what you've experienced, and how he writes to translate his own emotions and thoughts down into the page to events that happen in this movie is really sort of really terrifying for me. And maybe it's the simple idea of just that concept of loss and grief, and maybe experiencing or feeling what some of these parents could potentially be feeling also. Maybe not with the loss of a child, but just the loss of somebody, and kind of building off of that from just the emotional mindset that Zach Cregger was certainly in. I think when you have a writer that's capable of doing that, I think that's when you put sort of like your best work into it. And so I'm really excited to kind of see what this movie ends up becoming. And if it's just the tip of the iceberg, then yeah, I might have to wear my hoodie or my baseball cap and, like, you know, just maybe lower it down a little bit for certain scenes, just to avoid being completely terrified out of my mind. But yeah, this movie looks like it's going to be pretty bananas, Stuart.
Yeah, definitely.
Marcelino says, I love Barbarian. What I want to see the most is what kind of themes being explored. Barbarian tackled sexual abuse, misogyny, incest, trauma, and the ripple effects of abuse. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something a little bit along the lines of like parenting going wrong in this movie. Like maybe all these kids have been through some level of trauma in some way or shape or form. I really have no idea. But yeah, it's I think it's going to get personal and really emotional, and really tap into those really dark thoughts. But we'll see. I want to know what you guys think from what you heard from Zach Cregger, what you guys saw in the trailer. What's your anticipation level for this movie? Set to go ahead and drop this August. I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that out of the way, Stuart, I may cancel one of these stories and dive into just the last one here. Or you know what, this may not, you know, I'm just going to bring this up really quickly.
I've never watched Miami Vice, so I won't have much to contribute in this discussion.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring this up because apparently there is a Miami Vice remake in the works. Top Gun Maverick director Joseph Kosinski is set to go ahead and tackle this. I will pull up the banner real quick here. We won't spend too much time on this one. But yeah, the Top Gun filmmaker is set to direct a Miami Vice remake. Dan Gilroy, who wrote Nightcrawler, which was a great film, along with The Bourne Legacy, is adapting the screenplay. Though the plot details haven't been revealed, the movie is based on the 1980s TV series. Casting is yet to be announced. So we are looking forward to that, but it feels very much like it's in its early stages. Kosinski, who steered Top Gun Maverick, and he's got the next film that he's going to be releasing this year, F1, from the Formula One racing starring Brad Pitt. That's going to be coming out also. He does have another UFO conspiracy thriller with Apple set to go ahead and drop also. So again, while I personally haven't never watched Miami Vice, I feel like we've gotten like maybe a reboot television series for it before. I feel like maybe they've also done another Miami Vice remake movie wise of like several years back, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think if there's anything that fascinates me about Miami Vice, I think that this could be like the new generation Bad Boys, Stuart. And I say that in the sense of like when you've got a director that is that's done Top Gun, that's done F1, his type of vision and like his fast-paced, adrenaline pumping sort of directing style, I think, especially if you're going to be going into like Miami, whether that's you're revisiting the 80s, like if it's an 80s peace period, or if it's a modernized sort of look at Miami. The idea of that fast adrenaline sort of 80s Miami Vice with the clothing and the lifestyle and stuff. There is something really fascinating about that I think if you can get two really great actors to be your main lead roles, this could be like a rejuvenation of the Miami Vice franchise, but more in like a Bad Boys kind of formula, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like maybe not like Michael Bay-esque, but like just that fast adrenaline pumping sort of action film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like going more in the action direction rather than what was it, like the other, because like there was like that
There
period
was
of time
another
where they
one.
were bringing like 21 Jump Street, they were bringing what was the other one, Baywatch, they were like remaking those but in the forms of like kind of comedies. And then what was the other one, there was the one it's about highway patrol, Chips. Yeah, they did the same thing with Chips, bringing back shows that weren't like necessarily comedies for their time, but then bringing them back and making them as comedy remakes. So I assume that's not what they're doing with this Miami Vice, but so it'll be kind of cool to see kind of like, instead of going that route, you bring it back, but bring it back as kind of a more high budget action movie.
Yeah, Ram Jam says Jamie Foxx was in the remake, and looking back at it, there was a remake of Miami Vice back in 2006. So we're literally almost like 20 years removed from that. It looks like it was Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. I remember the concept of it, or like I remember the idea of it happening. I don't think it's a movie that I certainly watched, though. I don't think it was a great movie. But I am curious if they can revitalize it and make it into something different. Ram Jim says a theme song for Miami Vice is so iconic. That it certainly is. But two great actors, and Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx have done this before. But if anything, if I am willing to check out this movie, I think if F1 can be as very successful, maybe not as successful as Top Gun Maverick, but I think a director's vision has a lot to do with what this could potentially mean for what this movie could turn out to be. So we'll see, but we'll keep you guys posted in that regards. But yeah, a remake is currently in the works for Miami Vice. And then last but not least, Stuart, I believe this movie might be one of your more anticipated, your top 5 of most anticipated movies of the year. I could be wrong, or maybe your honorable mentions. But Rian Johnson's Knives Out is back in the news here this week as we await the final entry into his trilogy titled Wake Up Dead Man. He's had 2 incredible Knives Out movies. The first one, which was released in theaters and I believe on Netflix, was highly successful, and it certainly warranted a sequel. The sequel, Glass Onion, premiered on Netflix to some pretty big numbers. I actually think I like the second one a little bit more than the first one personally, but to each their own. But it seems like these movies get bigger and bigger and bigger, and Rian Johnson's ideas continue to get bolder and more creative each and every time. So I am excited to kind of see how this movie turns out. But Stuart, there's a potential that we could get more Knives Out movies for this. The future is really up in the air, according to Rian Johnson, but he's not opposed to coming back and doing more films with this main detective played by Daniel Craig. This comes to us from Collider, where it says Knives Out director Rian Johnson teases the franchise's future after Wake Up Dead Man. This is, in fact, an exclusive report for him. Johnson told Collider's Christina Radish that the excitement to keep going is still there. The filmmaker also teased that much like Glass Onion was wildly different from the first movie, Wake Up Dead Man will also have a major tonal shift, he stated. So this is what he says. He says, as long as Daniel Craig wants to keep doing it, and as long as we have an idea that to us feels not just like cranking out another one, but feels genuinely exciting and scary, like, oh, wow, could we pull this off? I love the genre. It's endlessly malleable. And so it holds endless possibilities. But at the same time, I have made 3 of them in a row. I don't feel burnt out on it at all. But the next thing I have in my head to write is an original that's not a mystery at all. It's a totally different genre. One of the things I love about the mystery genre is that it holds the who done it. Like sci-fi, it encompasses so many other types of genres. Wake Up Dead Man, this next movie is so different than Glass Onion. It's like night and day. And so as long as we keep doing that, it's exciting. Okay. Stuart, let me tackle the elephant in the room first before we even talk about Knives Out. And that is Rian Johnson. When are you going to come back to Star Wars, my guy? Okay. You know, are you still making the Star Wars trilogy, bro?
Oh, I think they announced a while ago that that's not happening.
Is this not happening with Kathleen Kennedy? Have you like completely left off? You know what I think, Stuart? I think he always has plans to come back to Star Wars. I think he's allowing The Last Jedi to marinate. I think he's going to allow The Last Jedi to marinate for a good like 15, 20 years. And then if Rian Johnson is still making movies at that time, the Last Jedi is going to continue to climb people's ranks. Eventually people are going to be like, you know what? That Last Jedi film, that might be the best of the prequels. And as people start recognizing the greatness that is The Last Jedi, I mean, look, it's a good movie. It's great in certain areas, but it definitely needed work for sure. I think once people start changing their reception or perception of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson's going to be like, I'm back, mother effers. So I would never cancel Rian Johnson out, but it does at least one continue to put fuel to the fire that he's not coming back to Star Wars anytime soon. And if anything, I love when Rian Johnson is in his original movie making bag. And if he has another original movie in mind, I have got no problem with him stepping away from Knives Out and doing something else. I don't think from an original movie standpoint, I don't think Rian Johnson has missed yet. He's kind of like, to me, that of like a Ryan Coogler in the sense of like, you look at Brick, great movie, Looper, great movie, his first 2 Knives Out movies, great movies. Outside of what you might think about The Last Jedi, I'm just talking strictly original movies. He always has fresh, new, innovative ideas. He's great with ensemble casts, great dialogue, great, really rich storytelling. And if he wants to go ahead and go on and move to something else that's an original concept, whatever Rian Johnson puts out, I'm going to be certainly checking out. So I do love that notion that he's got another idea in mind. And while I really do love the Knives Out stuff, you know, 3 movies is good for me, man. You know, if Daniel Craig wants to do another one of these movies like 5-10 years from now, maybe revisit it. But I'm okay, regardless of how good Wake Up Dead Man is going to be. If you can give me a complete trilogy of movies that are excellent, step away and go on and certainly do something else. You got nothing else to prove in this whodunit world. But I do like his openness to the idea of like being able to take one genre and spin it on its head and evolve it into something else. And when he talks about Glass Onion and Wake Up Dead Man being like night and day, I'm just thinking, where are we going? Are we going into space like Fast and the Furious? Like where are you really taking this franchise? But regardless of what he decides to do, I'm here for it. I think Rian Johnson is one of those great caliber directors for this current generation right now. So whatever he wants to do, especially an original aspect, I'm here for it. But what do you think about what he's saying here, Stuart, in regards to, you know, yeah, if there's an idea out there, not something that feels like we're cranking these out, I'm open to doing it. I also have an original movie I want to do. How do you feel about the potential of this franchise continuing and just some of the things he said?
110% understand where he's coming from, because yes, I think that the Knives Out franchise is definitely one that can have a lot of longevity, but you don't really need to rush each individual production for it. I think it's just one that, you know, when he has nothing else to write and he's looking for a new franchise or a new thing to write, you know, this is a perfect thing to come back to. I think that as long as Daniel Craig wants to keep going for it, you know, they could easily keep getting him to come back. And the best part is because it's these are kind of based on, like, or not based on, but you know, there's some inspiration from some old school like Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple type of mysteries, and because of that, each one can kind of be just standalone. Like they can evolve the character, they can maybe introduce characters that could come back into future installments, but for the most part, it's not like anything that happens in Knives Out was there to set up something that happens in Glass Onions. The adventures are very standalone, and I think that that's what will help the longevity of this franchise going forward in the future. Because I'm going to say this, even if he doesn't have a plan for the fourth movie yet, there's going to be a fourth movie. I just know it. I know they're going to be coming back at some point in the future. It may be 10 years from now, but I don't see this franchise like being put to rest permanently anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is one of those things where it's like if you've got a great idea and it's working for you, you know, why stop? I am fascinated to see, like, I do believe that they plan on releasing this movie in theaters for a limited run. I think maybe for about 2 weeks. So I will be fascinated to see exactly like how much this movie makes in the long run. Financially, to see if that helps them make that decision as to, you know, this series is still really popular and people still really want to come out, and you know, money talks. And if this is like a #1 movie on Netflix or in the top 10 on Netflix for like weeks, if not months at a time, Netflix is no stranger to forking over a ton of money in order to keep a director or a creator attached to them to continue to create more content. So you know, whether or not it's something that they immediately announce after Wake Up Dead Man, or if they take their time, I don't mind him eventually coming back, but I do want to see Rian Johnson put out another banger of an original movie, because it feels like he can create franchises if he wants to, and he managed to do that here with Knives Out. Whether or not he can do it again with another original film and build off of that, we'll definitely have to wait and see. But yeah, there's a part of me that thinks that regardless of how well this one does, do you think it has to be successful, or do you think they're going to make one regardless?
I don't think it has to be successful. I think they're still going to make one regardless. I think that it should be, that they're definitely going to want it to be successful because of how much money they put into this. Because I remember us talking about how it's like got over $100 million of a budget, where compared to like the previous movies, they were like $40-60 million. So a lot more money is being put into this, which is why I think it's incredibly smart for them to like actually release this one in theaters. I think honestly, I wouldn't even do a limited run. I'd do a full theatrical run before having it become a Netflix movie. But yeah, I hope it's successful. I really do. And yeah, but I think that even if it isn't, I think that as long as it's well written, people are still going to see the potential in this franchise, and we're still going to get more movies going forward.
You know, the first Knives Out movie was made for $40 million, and it grossed $312 million worldwide. I mean, it was a huge success on a financial basis. But then it goes and it kind of undercuts itself in Knives Out 2, which only had a 1-week limited theatrical release, and only made $15 million. But that's because it was available to everybody immediately on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, or at least, you know, within a week's time. So people are just like, I might as well just wait for it to be at home. So I think financially, it's kind of undercutting itself from a profit standpoint, because the first one did so well. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I would almost keep this movie in theaters for at least a month or two, or a month and a half at least, to see what it can do before releasing it on streaming. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. Would you want more Knives Out after Wake Up Dead? Are you excited to see what Rian Johnson's capable of doing again in the original filmmaking realm of things? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below. All right, Stuart. And with that out of the way, I think you know what time it is.
I do indeed. And now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And we're going to get into our live viewer question portion of the show. If you ever want to submit a live viewer question over, how do you do so? Let me show you right now. So every Saturday afternoon or evening, we will post a live viewer question post over to our YouTube channel. Just go over to our YouTube channel, as you see right here, youtube.com at A+ Hero Report. Click on that post tab, as you see right here. And we've got some live viewer questions for you guys. Let me pull this up here for you. We'll sort this out, maybe put on some smooth tunes today. Let's see what we got here. While that reconnects us, reestablishes the audio. Give me one moment here. I meant to, I always forget to do this, but when we go live, I would like to set up this video to be the video that people see when they come to our YouTube channel. And I just forgot to put our show up here tonight, but I just set that up. So, all right. Live viewer questions. Let's go ahead and sort this out, and we'll go ahead and kick this off with Marcelino. For the longest time, DC Comics was famous for buying other comic book companies and integrating them into the DC universe. Fawcett Comics owned Shazam. Charlton Comics owned Captain Atom, Ted Kord, Peacemaker. Milestone, Wildstorm, and many others. Watchmen was also molded into the DCU universe. If DC did buy another comic company and integrate its characters into the DCU, which comic company would you want that to be?
Boom Studios, so we could have live action Power Rangers and Justice League fighting side by side.
I love it. I mean, I'm trying to think of like other comic book companies out there outside of like Boom Studios. The only one I could think of that's like prominent would be Image Comics. I know Wildstorm was like a spinoff, I believe, out of Image Comics on the independent side of things. But I would not mind Image Comics. I think there's some characters like Youngblood, I believe, from classic iterations. Savage Dragon would be interesting to see how they would interact with like other DC comic book characters. You know, the biggest one being Spawn. I would be interested to kind of see that. I mean, give me more. I know we've had classic Batman and Spawn team ups before, crossover events, comic book wise, but I wouldn't mind the opportunity of seeing a little bit more of that. So yeah, if the two that come to mind that I wouldn't mind seeing would be Boom Studios and Image Comics for sure.
I also, if they ever did adapt Spawn into the DC universe, I would not mind seeing a Spawn Constantine kind of and Zatanna kind of crossover, or just in general, like include Spawn with Justice League Dark, because I feel like he would fit in there like a glove.
We also have Marcelino says, how about Dynamite Comics? I'm not too familiar with Dynamite, or maybe I am, but oh yeah, he says includes The Boys, The Shadow, Vampirella. Yeah, I would be open to that too. Vampirella, I feel like, has been around for like decades. She's been around for a minute now. I would be interested to see how they would introduce her. Red Sonja, I believe, is also part of Dynamite Entertainment. The Shadow would be interesting to kind of include. So, yeah, I mean, maybe if anything, maybe Dynamite and Boom Studios would be my first choices, because I do like Image Comics being independent on its own. So they would be like my last inclusion. So I would be open to Dynamite and Boom Studios.
Damn, I'm just realizing. So I'm looking up Dynamite comic books, and they do a lot of tie-in comic books with popular IPs. So if they were to incorporate, like let's say like they, in a theoretical world where there wouldn't be any legal jargon, if they were to incorporate Dynamite Comics, it would mean that they would have like IPs like the Evil Dead, not to mention all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, which they probably technically already have because they're all under the Time Warners. But yeah, they would have a lot of flexibility though if they had all those IPs.
Yeah, that's Marcelino also throws out Dark Horse Comics. Also, how can I forget Dark Horse Comics? Jesus, there are just some really well established independent comic book companies like Image and Dark Horse that have been around forever. Like I would almost hate to see them engulfed under DC, but I feel like it's almost a matter of time, because I do like there to be still great comic book industries out there. So yeah, but Dark Horse is definitely another big one. Don't they do like Predator and the Alien comics and stuff? Who does like the Transformers ones?
I actually don't know who does Transformers, but yeah, they've done Alien and Predator comics. I can't find any on my shelf at the moment, but I own a few Predator versus Batman comic books, along with like I think there was like Alien versus Predator versus Superman something, but I have a few of them that they've done that are pretty fun. Also, sorry, one last thing. Sorry to go back to Dynamic Comics again.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But I just found something that just kind of blew my mind. There's apparently now a comic series of Red Sonja and the Evil Dead. So it's called Red Sonja versus the Army of Darkness, and it has Red Sonja and Ash from Evil Dead fighting side by side, and it looks freaking awesome.
That's pretty badass.
Oh, cool. IDW comic books. You know what? Since James Gunn low-key confirmed that GoBots exist in the MCU, maybe Transformers should exist in the DC universe.
I dig that. I dig that. Speaking of Boom Studios, I have added to my weekly subscription pulls Power Rangers Prime and VR Troopers. They're going to be coming with a VR Troopers comic book, so I'm going to give those a shot. Marcelino says Legends of Tomorrow changed its tone from serious to comedic to deal with the budget they had, but I would imagine that at least some of the writers would protest the idea of making it more comedic because it's set in the Arrowverse to have already established a tone and universe, so any future shows could respect and try to follow a similar tone. And the main reason I say this is because there are many sci-fi shows that suffer from low budget, but the writers don't let that get in the way of the story they want to tell. Instead, the writers will find ways to work around the budget and only use expensive moments when the story calls for it. So my question is, how come none of the writers on Legends seem to put their foot down on the budget and just go in the direction that tons of the other sci-fi writers go when they have to work on low budgets?
So I'm going with what I heard from Sarah Lotz in interviews, and I think it kind of comes down to, I don't think the writers of the show were as passionate in the beginning as they were later on, because from what I hear, they didn't even have a showrunner when the series began. So like the writers weren't even sure what kind of show they were really writing for. I think it was like when the budget started to get lower, and then they also started rotating in cast because most of the cast only signed on for one season. Because I mean, even like when they started production on the show, it was like they weren't even sure if it was going to be a consistent series or just an anthology. So most of the writers, most of the actors, as we kind of see at the end of season one, ended up leaving because they weren't even contracted for more than one season. So I think it was because there was, if I had to guess, and I'd have to like talk to writers of the show, I would be curious to get their perspective. But if I had to guess, I would assume it was just because there wasn't really a clear direction for the first two seasons. And so while the budget got lower, I think, and they actually started to have like a showrunner for the series, I think that's when the writers were like, okay, cool, this is the type of show we're writing for. We're going to kind of commit to this format. And then that's when they started to go the more comedic route with seasons 3, 4, and 5, etc. And even then, like, I still do think like the first 2 seasons, you definitely had, I think that was like one of the things they were kind of going for, was like kind of like in Avengers, even though you have like this group of superheroes, I think one of the things they wanted to focus on was kind of like the more character interactions of it. And so, you know, when the budget kind of got lower, I would assume that became like kind of the bigger priority for it, is like, we're going to focus more on character interactions. And since these characters do have like silly dynamics, obviously it's going to lead to more comedy. But yeah, it's a show that, like, one of these days, this would be the most fun thing for me to rewatch, but with a writer from the series. Like I would love to watch Legends of Tomorrow with like a either writer or producer of the show, just so, because like I always, you know, I just have all these like questions of how the show turned from one thing to another, and I have some answers, but like I don't have a clear picture, if that makes sense.
He also says, it's a pretty of a long question, so I'll try and go through as quick as I can. The boys get praised for satirizing real life issues, but when does it get to the point where it becomes stupid because it's trying to be objective? And I want to make it clear, I'm looking for petty reasons that make you say, was it really worth it? So I will not count Huey being assaulted because it's more on the lines of being immoral. I'm looking for petty instances. For instance, the boys poked fun at the end game scene where all the girls gathered together because it was felt like the studio were given the most shallow representation for women, and it didn't feel like it helped serve the story or the characters. You know, everyone kept saying that the boys did women power better than Marvel. I'm not saying that stuff like that shouldn't be criticized, but it goes both ways. People say it's objectively better, but I remember being in the theater when that scene played out and everyone cheered and one woman in the audience yelled, "Girl power." Does her opinion not matter? You're telling me that praise like that should be discarded? It goes both ways. I can make the same issues with the boys because Starlight, for a majority of the series, is a victim character. Her powers suck. She always loses. She's got R word in the beginning. Is that really women empowerment? Queen Maeve is a depressed alcoholic for half the season. Is that really women empowerment? Kamiko, for the majority of the season, is a stereotypical silent Asian assassin. Is that really women empowerment? They get better as the series progresses, obviously, but I'm talking about first impressions. What about examples outside of the boys? You know, Invincible has Doc Seismic, who is a SJW scientist who wants to destroy Mount Rushmore because the founding fathers were racist slave owners. People like him because of him being a male feminist Nazi. But when is there a breaking point? When do you call out the creators of the show for creating a character like because it only promotes the negative, the anti-woke and grifter crowd always paint SJWs as, and people who have reason to be upset are instead being laughed at and not heard? And what about South Park? When do they cross the line? When is it not okay for them to do something like the Pandaverse special and call them out for it? Because a lot of people often say that South Park is libertarian leaning series willing to attack anyone outside of their bubble or how much power any group has, but as a result, the show ends up giving a false equivalency of power, such as marginalized groups who are fighting for equal rights just as wrong as people who deny them their rights. Basically saying that marginalized people have the same power as politicians who enact harmful laws towards them is obviously not true. The point I'm trying to get is there needs to be a limit, and people need to stop treating certain instances as objectively good or bad. So when does it get to the point where it becomes stupid because it's trying to be objective?
Wow, that's a handful question, but a really good one too, because I don't have a perfect answer for that. The thing with the examples that you give, like the boys, Invincible, South Park, is that they do have those moments where I'm sure that if I leaned more on like kind of the opposite side of some of the issues, actually South Park is kind of one I can use as an example, because there are times where I lean in on the opposite side of the issue whenever they bring up certain topics. And I think for me, it just really depends on like how the other side is how the other side is being perceived, and two, what does this have to do with the current story that you're trying to tell? What are you personally trying to say with this? I think that the boys, they are definitely immature, which, as you could probably guess from the title, they are kind of immature at times with the way they'll like kind of satirize it. For me, I don't mind it though, only because like when they do kind of go into the more aspect of the more immature levels, it's usually kind of for a joke, which will lead to like kind of a bigger picture of the scene of like the overall thing that they're trying to say for the episode. I think where I hate it though is like, and this is why I don't tend to get mad at South Park whenever I disagree with them on a particular issue, because South Park usually, and I say usually because there are definitely exceptions, does a good job of kind of like tackling the idiocy of both sides, saying like why both sides have like kind of dumb points, and why basically kind of like why if you lean more in one area, this is probably why you lean in that area. But then they may have like a really biased conclusion where suddenly, it's like, okay, you're clearly just ignored this and this so you could get your point across. So I think that's like kind of where it is like when you ignore something only to get like your point across. And it's so hard to say like when that happens, because I think that no matter what, we all have like a personal bias. So when we're writing something, if we have something to say, it's always going to come off that way, even if you are trying to be as like objective of it as possible, even if you're trying to be as mature about it as possible. It's a really, really challenging balance. I can't think of any times while watching The Boys or watching Invincible when it like bothered me though, because again, like when they do get really immature about it, it tends to be for like a quick gag, and that's kind of it. The main villain, or that one villain that you bring up from Invincible, I think it's like kind of a funny one-off villain, but there's a reason they don't make a character like that, like the main villain of Invincible, because when you do have those kind of extreme people who are very much like the negative side of SJWs, or like, I always hate it when people like say wokeness is like ruining media and that kind of stuff. But like when it does kind of get to what I guess you could say how the anti-woke see the woke people, that's how I'll kind of give it. It's God, I forgot where I was going with that. What was I saying? What I'm saying is that it's just a really hard balance. And I never know. There are times where it's like, I myself am going to probably side on my more biased sides, even when I shouldn't. Like if someone makes an immature joke, but it's an immature joke that I'm like, I kind of agree with them, so I'm going to find it funny. I'm guilty of that. I try to correct myself whenever I do notice myself kind of realizing, oh, that is a very kind of biased perspective that I'm laughing at. But yeah, it's such a hard question to answer, because it's just, there's just so much to say, and it's like a joke for joke kind of case, if that makes sense.
I'm glad you tackled that one, man. Yeah, appreciate your answer there, Stuart.
Yeah. I feel like it wasn't a good answer. Like it wasn't even a clear answer though. Like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Jessica Fryman, do you think the new Disney reboot of Power Rangers will be in the same universe as the original series, or in an all-new one? Why do you think fans have stopped trying to save their favorite shows when they get canceled? And do you think we ever get a third National Treasure movie? I'm under the impression that the Disney reboot will be an all new one. I have to wait and see more details, but I'm under the impression it's a complete total reboot. Why do you think fans have stopped trying to save their favorite shows when they get canceled? I don't know if people have stopped. I still see the Acolyte. I still see like Save the Acolyte or Renew the Acolyte all the time on my timeline. Not all the time, but every now and then it certainly gets brought back up. I don't know if maybe people have just gotten used to the idea like there's a lot of one and done out there when it comes to streaming services, so they don't try as hard anymore. Whereas before, I think there were some pretty successful, opportunities of saving series to kind of come back. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But I still see every now and then a couple shows being asked to be saved. Or maybe they just think to themselves it's kind of pointless at this time. I don't know, Stuart. What do you think? Do you think people are still trying to save some of their favorite shows out there, or do you think they stopped that movement?
No, I still see it happening quite a bit. Not necessarily with shows that are like so old there's no point in bringing it back. But yeah, every now and then I get people who, or especially the Acolyte's probably the best example, because I think like a lot of people that didn't even like the Acolyte, like for me, I think for us, we kind of like just thought Acolyte was okay. I still think there was a lot of potential with it. Like, I think that you could have, it could have kept going. Actually, since Marcelino brought South Park up in his previous question, I'm rewatching South Park from beginning to end. That show took like 3 seasons to get good, because seasons 1 and 2, they made me laugh every now and then, but they weren't good. Like they very much like everything you know and love about South Park now was not in the first 2 seasons. So I think that and that was just common for TV back then. Star Trek: The Next Generation, the first 2 seasons are not good, honestly. And I feel like we could have gotten that with Acolyte. I feel like the potential was there. And I think that a lot of people recognize that. So yeah, I still see people trying to bring back shows that were canceled.
Do you think we ever get a 3rd National Treasure movie? I think so, Stuart. I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think maybe within like the next I think we could still get one in like the next 10 years. I think you still have to have Nicolas Cage involved though. I think maybe just give him a really good script. I don't know. I think a part of me would like to see a 3rd National Treasure movie. I don't know.
I'd love to see a 3rd National Treasure. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love that.
Has Nicolas Cage come out and said no, absolutely not?
I haven't heard him say no. I just haven't heard him say that like anyone's offered him though the role.
I might have to
or the
Google
chance
that.
to come back, I should say.
I might have to Google that. Marky Parco, in a recent live stream, Jeremy Renner said that he would not return for the 2nd season of Hawkeye because he was offered half his season 1 salary, a proposition he found insulting, especially considering the physical challenges he faced in a snowplow accident. Despite some viewers' lukewarm reception of the 1st season, Renner expressed his continued love for a character, but felt compelled to defend his word, clarifying his issue was with the penny pincher accountants rather than Marvel Studios itself. Given his recent recovery and willingness to return compensation, does Disney potentially risk alienating talent by significantly reducing pay for established actors in successful franchises?
Oh yeah, you definitely risk alienating that talent, because when news like that comes out, you just reconfirm what a lot of people already kind of assume when it comes to that side of like Disney / Marvel. You get a lot of celebrities that like constantly say, "I will never do a Marvel project," and I think things like this are the reason for that.
Yeah, you might be right there. Blossom, can you believe we're in the year of SPD already? When you were growing up, did you imagine that era of it being real? Asking on account of I was curious. When you were growing up, did you imagine that era of it being real? Not real, not to the extent of SPD. But like, do you mean like that we would ever get to 2025, or like the concepts of 2025 being a real thing? I don't know. What about you, Stuart?
Well, if I had been watching SPD when it first came out, I honestly never thought I would have, because I feel like every kid has this thought, no one thinks that they're ever actually going to become an adult. No one ever actually thinks they're going to get there, because time moves incredibly slow when you're young, your perception of time. So I didn't think we would ever I was ever going to live to 2025. And then obviously I didn't watch SPD back then, but I watched it back in, when did I watch it? I want to say it was like 2015 or 16 when I finally did watch Power Rangers SPD. And at that particular point, I was just kind of like, wow, they made some really bold predictions, because, that's like, 9 years away. And I don't think we're going to get to that point in the future. Or I don't think the future is going to look like that when we get there.
Yeah, I kind of almost want to do a rewatch of SPD this year. Maybe I'll do that to celebrate it. She also says, remember when the Tokyo's last movie took place in 2025? I still can't believe it's been 10 years for that movie already. Still thinking of using the movie with the Rangers meeting their younger selves. Still some bugs, though. Damn, I might have to rewatch the Tokyo movie, too. Appreciate you bringing that up. The most talented man in the world. The recent live action adaptation of Disney's Snow White, released on March 21st, has been met with significant controversy and underperformed at the box office, grossing only $200 million worldwide against a substantial budget of $240 million. The film faced criticism on multiple fronts. Yada, yada, yada. This adaptation joins a list of live action remakes that have divided audiences, with many questioning the necessity and creative direction of these projects, considering the various controversies and its financial performance. What long-term impact might this film have on Disney's strategy for live action remakes of their classic animated films? I think we kind of talked about this a little bit in regards to one of their films, Entangled, I think, being delayed. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks back, that Disney wanted to kind of wait to see how some of their live action movies like Snow White, along with Lilo and Stitch, were going to do at the box office, because they were considering a changing of course if for some reason those movies didn't necessarily do well financially. So with Snow White not doing so well, I do wonder if they have their eyes a little bit more on Lilo and Stitch now, to kind of see if it's going to draw audiences out. I think the article also mentioned the idea that there is like new people in charge in regards to Disney in certain areas that may also have a different viewpoint on the idea of adapting classic animated films. So there seems to be like a course correction happening in Disney, or very much just sort of like a wait and see in regards to further development of future ones. So make no mistake, I mean, the idea that Snow White has done terribly financially is definitely being paid attention to by Disney, and the same thing will certainly happen when it comes to Lilo and Stitch, because, you know, I think while they view these movies as like opportunities to make easy money for sort of like a new generation, maybe it's not as easy money as it used to be. And if you continue to lose money doing over these live actions, I think that's the audience certainly speaking to you with their wallets. So I think it definitely is being paid attention to by Disney, and it certainly will have a lasting effect kind of moving forward. But we'll see what Lilo and Stitch does.
Yeah, I think the big thing of why Disney live action remakes don't do really well, and I probably mentioned this before, but I think it all just comes down to them being in this weird halfway point where they don't want to fully remake the original, but they also don't want to take too many things away from the original. And because of that, you end up with like two movies that just don't have matching themes. And I think that like it just ends up not feeling like, it just ends up feeling like just empty because of it. Yeah. If I go on any longer, I'm not going to stop talking. So let's move on.
We also got Power of the Morphin Grid, Disney era versus Nickelodeon era. The contrast between Disney and Nickelodeon stewardship of Power Ranger reveals distinct approaches to the franchise. Disney from 2001 to 2009 demonstrated a significant commitment through substantial production investments, extensive promotion, including behind-the-scenes content like Operation Overdrive and RPM Cast, showcasing production, character spotlights, and dedicated network programming. Disney ensured continuous fan engagement by strategically airing reruns of the current season alongside past seasons, from Mighty Morphin up to preceding one on 2 channels during hiatuses, highlighted by events like Tommy Trilogy and 24-hour marathons. Their investment was further evident in the ambitious crossover episodes, high production value with detailed sets and costumes, and Power Ranger presence in Disney theme park parades. For example, the announcement of Dino Thunder creatively merged with their animated series Die Gunder, while budgetary constraints sometimes surface, the consistent introduction of new battleizers, arsenals, and unique design showcases dedication to visual innovations. Despite initial reservations from some fans who found certain Disney seasons formulaic, revisiting these installments has led to a recognition of the consistent care invested in their production and promotion. Unfortunately, Disney removed key scenes from a crossover, which tarnished the reputation of the characters and actors involved, in which some fans have recently discovered the deleted scenes online. Ultimately, Disney returned the franchise due to high production costs associated with each season's elaborate set designs and original footage. Years later, Saban returned for Nickelodeon in 2011, ushered in an era marked by perceived lack of robust promotion, frustrating schedule with extended hiatus and split seasons, and creative constraints. Promotional efforts were often minimal. International premieres, spoiled episodes for domestic audiences, creative limitations imposed by Saban and Nickelodeon led to criticisms of oversimplified narratives and mandate cartoonish comedic relief. Multiple-part episodes and serialized storytelling were generally discouraged, and the Force Super prefix became a point of contention. While Nickelodeon occasionally offered early episode access through social media polls featuring cast members and inviting actors to the Choice Awards, despite no wins, these were often overshadowed by network spoilers and disruptive scheduling. Notably, Beast Morphers and Disney and Dino Fury Season 1 offered increased creative freedom while maintaining a lighthearted tone. However, Dino Fury Season 2 made a significant shift as the first major season to move to Netflix. Considering Disney's tangible dedication to the production and promotion, do some fans now view the perceived limitations on creative freedom during their ownership as less... Considering Disney's tangible dedication to production and promotion, do some fans now view the perceived limitations on creative freedom during their ownership as a less significant concern when weighed against promotional neglect and creative restrictions that define the Nickelodeon era? I mean... I will say, you know, after breaking it down like that, it is one of those things where it's just like Disney didn't know what to do with Power Rangers. What? Like, it seemed like they were doing a lot of all the right things until they didn't want the franchise anymore. I always found the Disney era stuff to be far superior than Saban's return to the Nickelodeon era. Do some fans now view the perceived limitations on creative control during their ownership as a less significant concern when weighed against? I mean, I got to assume so. I'm sure there certainly were still creative freedom concerns during Disney, but I think they certainly handled them a lot better, clearly, than the Power Ranger czar himself and Saban coming through and being a hard ass on everything that they did. But there's no doubt that I think Disney certainly allowed for as much creative freedom as they possibly could. You know, I'm always a person that says, you know, there is always a creative limitation that Super Sentai footage brings to Power Rangers. But I think if there's any era of Power Rangers that did their best to certainly work around some of those limitations and provide more creative freedom, it probably would be the Disney era run, Stuart. But do you think it's changed the perceived notion of Disney and their time with the series compared to a Nickelodeon era?
Yeah, I think everything good about the Disney Power Rangers era came down to, I guess, technically two things. Came down to the writers, and then came down to the Super Sentai that came before it. Because obviously, I think it's like that, you know, what they had to work with was what kind of like helped them with their creativity in terms of writing. But in terms of like the way Disney treated the Power Rangers franchise, the way they marketed it, the way they, you know, the quality of the toys went down. I think the best kind of comparison, this is going to get super political, but it's like Donald Trump when he complains about the United States Postal Service. He like constantly, you know, defunds it, constantly takes away money from it. And so when they inevitably fuck up, he then goes, oh, see, the United States Postal Service is useless. And I kind of think that's what it was with Disney and Power Rangers. They constantly took away promotion. They constantly lowered the budget over and over. So that, and they also gave it really crappy time slots, especially for Power Rangers RPM, so that when the viewership inevitably went down, they could be like, oh, see, the ratings are low. There's no point in us keeping Power Rangers now.
Yeah, I get like self injected wounds and then like just blame it on the franchise as a whole type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Peg C, what's up, Peg C? What are your thoughts on the producer of Back to the Future saying that another Back to the Future movie will never happen? Everybody says this. I don't. It's interesting to me, Stuart, that I feel like I see this story once a year. I feel like people write this story in articles or they talk to somebody, and this is a story that comes up all the time, like it's supposed to be a big thing. They're never making a sequel. They're not making another Back to the Future movie. Like I've known this for decades, Stuart. And yet when somebody says this, it all of a sudden becomes like current news. Robert Zemeckis says it is never happening. As long as this, look, as long as the people that made Back to the Future are still alive, this movie is never happening. We should just get this notion out of our heads. We should stop asking people these questions. This movie is never happening. I know people say never, but again, if you want a Back to the Future movie to happen, and again, I'm not promoting violence or anything like that. Somebody's gonna have to like poison some drinks for this to actually happen. It is not happening as long as the people that have created Back to the Future are still around. So I wish people would stop asking this question and making a big deal about it, because I feel like this is something that happens every year. We get a story, Back to the Future sequel is not happening. So I know this already. I know this already. And that's not against you, Peg C. I appreciate the question, but the irk that I have is that it even is made news. You know what I'm saying, Stuart?
Yeah, because this is something that literally Robert Zemeckis has been saying since 2015, since we passed the time of Back to the Future 2's future. He was like, no, we're not rebooting it. We're never making a sequel. You know, the trilogy is what it is. To me, I think, and I totally respect him not wanting to go back to that universe. Totally fine. Totally get it. I still think you can still make a similar premise. And because I feel like the type of story that Back to the Future tells about like generational differences, like, you know, what would a kid of today, you know, have been like if they were like 20 years in the past, or what would they think of 20 years in the past with kids their age, basically. I think that's a great story to tell. And I think you could tell it every 20 years, you know, with because, you know, time changes, the way people are changes. And I think that will always be a relevant story, which is why I would totally love to see a similar story to Back to the Future. Obviously, you would have to make a lot of changes so it would be legally safe. But I feel like you could tell a completely different story with a similar plot, just using, you know, 2025 and then maybe having them go back to 1995 or something like that.
Bro, I feel so old that this is a thing now. I feel so old that this is a thing now. That like going back to like my childhood is considered the past. Like, oh my god, like ancient history now.
Noah's gonna go back to 1995 and meet you as a high schooler.
Oh my god, no, I think I would probably be in middle school. I don't think I entered. Yeah, I think 1998 was when I began high school. So yeah, to see your dad as like a middle age. Oh my, like not a middle age, but like a middle schooler. Like that's crazy to me. Like I saw somebody, they did this one thing on TikTok where it was like, at what year would you consider like people or things to be considered like old? And like they were like, oh, 2000. I'm like, what? Like what the fuck? What does that make me, bro? Like, oh my god, like just entering that realm of a younger generation now considering me to be old. I'm like, god damn it.
I don't know. I don't know why it's this date. Well, I probably do know why it's this date specifically, but like anytime I'm checking ID and I see anything but like past the year 2001, I immediately want to say, nope, not old enough to drink. And then I have to stop and think and go, wait, yes, you are. And that's when it just like kind of occurs to me in my head, like kids born post 9/11 are old enough to drink, and that's what makes me go, oh my god, I'm old.
Old now, yeah, dude. And I would agree with you. I'm not opposed to the idea of there being like another story like Back to the Future being told. I do think, like, I'm not gonna lie, like Back to the Future is ripe for some sort of reboot or remake or something like that. It is. I'm a believer, like every 20 years, every 25 years, go ahead and do it. But you know, because just for a new generation. But I think it would be a lot of fun. I'm not opposed to the idea. I just know it's not gonna happen. So let's stop asking these people if something's gonna happen. Have you heard that there's going to be a Miami Vice remake and it's going to be directed by the Top Gun Maverick? What are your thoughts? Yeah, we talked about this briefly. I would be open to it based off of who the director is, because of the type of adrenaline rush that they would be able to inject in the Miami Vice. And to me, I would need it set in the 80s. I would need this to feel like a classic 80s action film, just pumped up with a modern day sort of level of directing. I don't know if I would want a modern day Miami Vice. I would need this to be a period piece in the 80s is probably where I would stand, Stuart. Would you need a period piece or current?
Probably current.
Okay. I just recently went to Calgary Fan Expo and got a chance to meet and take selfies with Judith Hogue, April O'Neil from the 90s live action movie. Met Ernie Reyes Jr., who was the first time the suit actor for Donatello, and James Saito, who was Shredder in the 90s movie. I also got a chance to take selfies with Nakia Burris and Catherine Sutherland, who were some of the favorite celebrities you got to meet at a comic book convention.
Ooh, I think the most positive interaction I've had with an actor was definitely Peter Sidarso from Power Rangers Ninja Storm when I met him at Power Morphicon. Like, not only was the interview that I did with him a lot of fun, which I think is still on our channel, dude was super friendly. And I was going to ask him a question that I wasn't sure if he'd be allowed to answer. So before the interview, I even like asked, hey, do you want me to tell you what the questions are beforehand? And he's like, no, it's all good. I trust you. And I'm like, oh, cool. So that's when I gave him like a question relating to Supergirl, which you can find. And what was cool is that he answered it. And then after I turned the camera off, he then gave me an even bigger answer that he wasn't allowed to say on camera, which just made me feel, oh, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty badass. Yeah, a couple celebrities. I think the biggest one to me is still Lou Ferrigno. I had the opportunity to interview Lou Ferrigno, who played the Incredible Hulk, maybe back in like 2015 or something like this. Might be like a year, like 10 years old, back at Comic Palooza in Houston. So intimidating in the sense of like, I don't know. It was like the first time as far as like our channel that I'm like, oh my God, this is like the biggest star, like the biggest celebrity I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And so like to just be thrown into the fire of asking him questions was kind of crazy, but he was such a nice dude. I mean, he towered me. He was a bigger guy, but I mean, he was such a nice dude at heart. Lou Ferrigno was definitely one of my favorites to meet. I'll even say, look, despite where Homeboy's head is at these days, Austin St. John was actually a really great like meet and greet, you know, to be able to like hang out with him and or at least interview him a little bit. Really personable guy, really cool to just kind of be able to approach. JDF, Jason David Frank, he had a meet and greet at one of the conventions out here in Dallas. I remember meeting him in person, having him sign some things for me, and then afterwards he had rented out this pizzeria for like a select few number of fans, and I was able to attend. And he was just really personable and down to earth, man. I mean, he just seemed like everything that you would want who you, I don't want to say idolize, but you always grew up looking at as the Green Ranger and White Ranger to be. He was that dude. And yeah, JDF is always going to be one of those people that I remember getting an opportunity to meet and spend some time with. And then lastly, I don't know, Manu Bennett from Arrow season 2, who played Deathstroke, was a really cool meet at a convention. I had him sign my season 2 box set of Arrow DVDs. Him and Stephen Amell, I think I both met that same day to sign it. But yeah, those are some of the ones that pop in mind.
Incredible actor for the guy that played Deathstroke on
Yeah.
Arrow.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone wrong with a Deathstroke actor at all. I think every actor they've had to play Deathstroke has been incredible. But Manu Bennett was like, God damn, he really made Arrow season 2 like one of my favorite seasons of television ever. He really did.
One more I actually almost forgot about. Ryan Colt Levy, who voices Denji in Chainsaw Man, because at the time I actually hadn't watched Chainsaw Man or read the manga, but my fiance was getting something signed by him, and he noticed my Ninja Turtle shirt, and the two of us just talked about Ninja Turtles for a bit, which was hella funny.
Nice. That's cool. That's pretty badass. My friend calls me Joseph. 2 questions. The 2023 film Blue Beetle, starring Jolo Maradona as the third Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, despite receiving a Saturn Award win and positive reception from many who saw it, significantly underperformed at the box office. This underperformance can be attributed to a variety of factors, including lack of substantial marketing and promotion due to Hollywood strikes, the growing sense of superhero fatigue, and the negative perception surrounding the ongoing DCU and Sony Marvel universe, leading to low initial expectations. Furthermore, some segments of fandom actively discouraged viewership, and minor controversies such as the character's remark about Batman also played a role. Despite the relative obscurity of the Blue Beetle mantle beyond Jaime, whose previous live action and animated appearance offered some familiarity and a generalized criticized antagonist, the film's origin story approach was considered a refreshing change of pace for many viewers amidst the MCU's shift towards multiverse narratives. Given the announcement by Jolo regarding a potential animated series, and considering this project could either be integrated into James Gunn's new DCU or exist within a separate DC universe, how might the success or failure of this animated series impact the future perception and potential integration of Blue Beetle's character within a broader DC landscape? Do you think that could hinder his growth? Like if the animated series is not well received? Because right now James Gunn is like, yes, the Blue Beetle movie, or the Blue Beetle character at least, is part of the DCU. They clearly want to establish this animated series as a DCU animated series. I'm not expecting it to be an Elseworlds project. Could the success or failure of the animated series hinder or affect, I should say, his integration into the DCU landscape? Oh, I think you're muted.
I think James Gunn is already kind of committed to keeping him as Blue Beetle, it sounds like, just the way he talks about it. So I think that as long as this show has the DCU logo, I think that is something that they're going to commit to for the time being.
I hope so. Because I really like Blue Beetle. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times, and it is one that I am a big fan of. I think Jolo is really great in that role, and I would like to see him do a little bit more. I am bummed in the sense that it's not like a live action series, but considering the success of Creature Commandos, I think if they keep to the same attention and care that they do for a Blue Beetle in regards to an animated series, I do think it could potentially lead to something live action related in the future, whether that be a team up movie, whether that be live action. I don't know. I think a live action Blue Beetle is years away, but I do think it's certainly I don't know. I don't know. I think Jolo is going to be Blue Beetle regardless, kind of going forward, regardless of what the perception of the animated series is. Will it affect how soon we see him in live action? Maybe. But I think if we do eventually see him, he's still going to be Blue Beetle, I think you're right about that. That's probably the only thing it'll affect, is like how soon we see him afterwards. Yeah. How do you let someone know that their breath stinks without being rude? And what if they already know, but they don't want you to know?
That's not a Star Trek question.
How do you let someone know their breath stinks without being rude?
There used to be this joke number that you would call. The thing was you were supposed to give it to someone at random, being like, "Oh, here's my number. Call me, later." And they would call it, and it'd be an automatic or an automated message saying, "Hey, your breath stinks. Whoever gave you this number wanted you to call it so they could politely tell you that your breath stinks." So I don't know if that number is still around. I'd say look into that.
I would say carry around some breath mints with you or some gum, and whenever you're in a conversation with this person, always eat the gum or the breath mint first. Like, have one for yourself, and then as they're talking to you, just be like, "Hey, bro, do you want a piece of gum?" Or, "Hey, bro, do you want a breath mint," sort of thing. So it's like you're offering them, but they're also made aware that, yeah, bro, maybe my breath does stink. You know what I'm saying? So you're offering something that you're already taking yourself. And maybe that's something that they'll kind of pick up on. I don't know. That would be like my polite way of letting somebody know that without being rude. It is also like I used to have this friend that I would go to comic book conventions that would smell all the time. And it's just like, how do you like, are you not showering? Do you just have this funk about you? Like when you go to conventions, people always say, please, like, wear deodorant. It's true, because body odor amongst nerds is like a real thing. And I remember we went to a convention together, and I didn't want to tell him he stunk, but I offered him my deodorant. Like I was getting ready, I put my deodorant on. I'm like, "Hey bro, do you want my deodorant?" He said, "Nah, I'm good." And I'm thinking, no, you're not good. But you might need this. But he didn't take me up on the offer, unfortunately. But yeah.
That is okay. That is some advice I should give everyone in the chat. If someone offers you gum, probably take it, because there's probably a reason they're offering it to you.
Yeah, probably, bro. Please take it. And then last but not least, Sam. Hi, may the force be with you. I'm watching Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. Is really amazing. Season 3 ever. So he's saying he thinks it's like the best out of what they've gotten so far. That says a lot.
Definitely.
I can't wait for season 3 of Star Wars Vision. Will be interesting. I love season 2. Was awesome. Maybe that's what I'm gonna do, Stuart. Outside of Tales of the Underworld, I kind of want to revisit Visions, because I feel like I haven't. I'm trying to remember if I think I might have skipped or not completed season 2. So maybe a refresher course for season 1, and then rewatching all of season 2 for Visions might give me a better appreciation for it, because they do have plans on doing the a season 3 and a potential spin-off for it. So to kind of be ready, I guess I probably should rewatch some of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. There's one comment I wanted to comment on real quick. So I would like for an adult animated show that pokes fun at South Park, as well as anyone who leans in that way. It's only fair that side gets made fun of as well. I would say, keep in mind, this is a really terrible movie, but if that's what you're looking for, Drawn Together, the movie, basically is an entire hour and a half of the writers being petty that South Park got renewed, but they didn't. So it's literally like an hour and a half of we hate South Park. So you got that show. It's a terrible movie, and none of the jokes they make about South Park are that funny. But you got that going for it.
Marcel also says, I have low expectations for Tales because having it be so short is insulting for storytelling. I guess it depends on how it's done. I think like the first was it Tales of the Jedi that did was it Tales of the Jedi that did the Count Dooku one and Ahsoka?
I think so. Jedi was Dooku and Ahsoka.
I think some of them could be done really well. I think the Count Dooku stuff was handled really, really well. I know some people might have had their issues with the Ahsoka. I'm trying to think of who was Tales of the Sith. What was the second one? I might have to revisit that one. I think I maybe barely paid attention to that one. That was with Barriss Offee. Yeah,
it was with Barriss and it was someone who I forgot her name, but she was in The Mandalorian. She
Oh,
wasn't a Night Sister, but she was on the planet with the
on the
Night
planet
Sisters.
from Ahsoka. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, Ahsoka's like a villain or arch nemesis or some shit like that. I remember that one. I think I don't know if I was insulting for storytelling, but I mean I kind of like the idea of like the moments in time for them. I guess it just depends on how focused those particular moments are in regards to the storytelling. But I think for me, still the best one is Count Dooku. But yeah, maybe a little bit underwhelming at times. But I think this is like just for people that have side characters that they appreciate, that they kind of want to learn just a little bit more about. Maybe not revolutionary in a sense for them. But there are people that I've seen people that are like, yeah, I would like to see more Asajj Ventress stories be told. Here you go. It may not necessarily be, like I said, revolutionary or mind changing, but I think they're done in service of the fans, allowing some of their favorite characters to kind of be brought back. But yeah, I would be open to the idea of like more focused storytelling for those brief periods of time. I think they could probably handle them a little bit better, but I still think the Count Dooku stuff was the best that they've had.
Yeah, I look at I kind of look at it in a similar manner to the series What a Cartoon, where it's like I feel like their main purpose is to see what clicks with the fans and what areas they might be exploring in the future. Like we already have that with Star Wars Visions, with it having its first spin-off show. So I could see that being like part of the purpose of Tales of the Tales of series, is to see what kind of side of Star Wars are fans really interested in exploring going into the future.
Many were hoping for each episode's 40 minutes, focusing on different characters each episode. I would say lower your expectations. And I only mean that in the sense of Star Wars has never given us anything 40 minutes. I mean, they barely give us 40-minute live action stuff. I think maybe Andor's the only thing that we've gotten like that. So thinking that live action Star Wars is going to give us anything 40 minutes of different character, yeah, I don't want to say they have to lower expectations, but I think we have to understand like what it is that Lucasfilm is willing to give us. I want more 40-minute stuff, but I think from an animated point of view, I think if there's anything that's going to be expanded into 40 minutes, it'll probably be more live action. I just don't see animation from Star Wars being anything more than 20 something minutes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can all hope. But look, guys, instead of us complaining here about Star Wars, let's celebrate Star Wars today. There is plenty to certainly find that we know and we love when it comes to Star Wars. And that's the one thing that I certainly would like to say. While I think we have a lot of criticism sometimes in regards to what it is that Lucasfilm or Disney provides for us in Star Wars, some things have been really great. Some things have been hits. Some things have been misses. Some things have been relatively mediocre. I think sometimes it is important, especially days like this, to remember why we're fans of this particular franchise, and remind ourselves as to why that is. Instead of focusing on the negatives of the things that we didn't get, let's enjoy the things that we did get. What brought us into Star Wars, what made us love this fandom and this franchise, and remind ourselves what it truly means to be a fan of particularly something, in this case Star Wars, to celebrate Star Wars Day. So after we leave the show, go celebrate, go find what it is that you love about Star Wars and throw yourselves into it today, guys. I definitely want you guys to celebrate it as much as you possibly can. But as far as we go, we probably will be having more movie reviews for you guys this week. I'm probably going to drop a Thunderbolts review, if not today, then definitely on Monday for you guys. I'll definitely keep you guys posted. I don't know what your schedule is like, Stuart, if you want to do a Thunderbolts review with me or not, but keep me posted. But we'll have plenty of movie reviews for you guys this week. We're going to have our Andor episodes 7, 8, and 9 reviews Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time, and any other big news and announcements that wind up dropping throughout the week. Then, of course, we'll certainly see you guys back here next Saturday, which I think Indy might be returning. I think Indy might be returning. I talked to him last week. I tried to get him to come this week. He said he might have to do it next weekend. So I believe Indy might be here. So we might have the full A+ Hero Report crew back finally, but we'll certainly keep you guys posted.
Don't tease us like that, Indy. You better be coming back.
Yeah, don't tease us like that, man. Stuart, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 over on Instagram and on Letterboxd.
And you guys can find us everywhere here, as you see at the bottom, at A+ Opinions, everywhere on social media. We are also on TikTok at Hero Report. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Here's where we post most of our videos. Hit that subscribe button and that bell notification, so when we do go live, you'll certainly be notified of brand new videos. If you want to follow us anywhere on social media, I would highly recommend the Facebook page. That's where we post all the news, all the trailers, all the posters, all the behind the scenes stuff throughout the week. And then we take 6 topics from our page and we discuss them right here on our YouTube channel. But that will certainly do it for us here, guys. We'll certainly see you guys next weekend. And until then, do us a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the force be with you. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.